Chapter 491. Huang Tian grinned. When he saw Fei Rin's vigilant expression, he said, "Kid, don't be so nervous. I'm not your enemy. Sir, what can I do for you?" Fei Rin calmed himself down and probed. Huang Tian was the tomb keeper of the ancestral mausoleum. At the same time, he was also the heir of a tomb keeper family. His strength was extraordinary, and he had already stepped into the martial spirit realm. He was not weaker than Mo Chuandao and Indra. More importantly, Huang Tian had grasped a trace of the space concept's power. Compared to ordinary concepts, the space concept's power was more mysterious and powerful. It could even tear apart the void and bury the enemy in the void. Hence, unless it was absolutely necessary, Fei Rin did not want to incur the enemy's wrath. "Kid, let me ask you, who obtained that dog emperor's treasure in the end?" Huang Tian held the wine gourd in his left hand and drank a mouthful of good wine. Then, he smacked his lips as if he was very concerned about what happened in the ancestral mausoleum. Dog emperor? Fei Rin was stunned when he heard that. Then, he had an epiphany. The person Huang Tian was referring to was Azir, the ruler of the Desert Dynasty. His strength had already reached the Martial King realm. After all, as the heir of the Tomb Keeper family, Huang Tian was bound by the life and death contract. He had been guarding the ancestral mausoleum in the Katar Desert for decades and could not leave. Naturally, he had many complaints in his heart. It was reasonable for Huang Tian to call Azir a dog emperor. It was because Azir had signed a life and death contract with his family that his family had to guard the ancestral mausoleum for generations and could not leave the Katar Desert. The power of the life and death contract was extremely powerful. It contained a trace of a Martial King realm expert's blood essence. Even if Huang Tian himself was not weak, he would not be able to break free from it unless his origin power cultivation broke through to the Martial King realm or if Azir's treasures were obtained by someone else. Hence, Huang Tian was very concerned about this. After all, once the life and death contract was broken, it meant that he could finally break free from the Tomb Keeper family's fate and regain his freedom. From then on, he could fly freely. Old Brother Huang, the Martial King realm's inheritance has been obtained. The ancestral mausoleum is buried forever. Fei Rin cupped his hands at Huang Tian and nodded. Although he didn't know why Huang Tian was here, he didn't sense any killing intent from Huang Tian. It was obvious that Huang Tian wasn't here for him, so his tone became more courteous. Moreover, even if Huang Tian really intended to make a move, with Fei Rin's current strength, he was not afraid at all. Although the other party had grasped a trace of the concept of space, it would not be so easy to kill him. Even if he could not defeat the other party in the end, he could still rely on the advantage of his movement technique's speed to escape. In the face of Fei Rin's explanation, Huang Tian also raised his eyebrows slightly. In the next moment, he used his origin energy to observe his dantian. His dantian was slightly different from that of ordinary martial artists. There was a black and white spiritual pearl floating in the middle of his dantian. It was very strange. However, at this moment, the black-white spirit pearl was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The light within it dimmed, and its aura scattered in all directions. In the end, it completely disappeared, as if it had never existed. "Ha ha! The life and death contract has really been broken," Huang Tian exclaimed in a low voice. His slightly tanned face was filled with joy, as if he had picked up some kind of treasure. All these years, in order to break free from the shackles of the life and death contract, Huang Tian could be said to have painstakingly planned. Now that his dream had finally come true, he was naturally extremely excited. As for the black-white spiritual pearl that floated within his dantian, it was called the Pearl of Life and Death. This pearl was the foundation of the life and death contract. Once a person was implanted with a life and death contract, a pearl of life and death would condense within his dantian. The Tomb Keeper clan that Huang Tian belonged to was also like this. Everyone's dantian would condense a pearl of life and death. Although the Pearl of Life and Death would restrict Huang Tian's movements and prevent him from leaving the Katar Desert, Huang Tian would not be able to leave the Catter Desert. However, the benefits of the Pearl of Life and Death were also very obvious. This pearl contained rich life energy that could be absorbed by a martial artist's body and used to increase one's cultivation and strength. At the same time, it could also increase a martial artist's innate talent and perception, achieving the miraculous effect of cleansing one's meridians and marrows. It could be said that there were both pros and cons. All those years ago, it was precisely by relying on the assistance of the Pearl of Life and Death that Huang Tian had comprehended the special concept energy, spatial concept. Now that the ancestral mausoleum had collapsed and the treasures left behind by Azir had been obtained, Huang Tian's life and death contract was naturally cancelled. Brother Huang, congratulations on regaining your freedom. Looking at the excited Huang Tian in front of him, Fei Ren rubbed his nose and smiled faintly. When he first entered the ancestral mausoleum, he knew that Huang Tian's ambition was not here. He would definitely not be willing to guard the ancestral mausoleum and stay in the Qatar desert for the rest of his life. Now, it seemed that he had guessed correctly. Boy, I want to ask you something else. That Dog Emperor's natal weapons were 2 rank 8 spirit treasures and a powerful martial art. Who obtained these inheritances in the end? Huang Tian calmed down and looked at Fei Ren again. At the same time, he drank a few mouthfuls of wine and smiled faintly. Although he was the tomb keeper of the ancestral mausoleum, he was quite interested in the inheritances left behind by the martial king realm powerhouses. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to get rid of the shackles of the life and death contract, and that the tomb keeper himself couldn't enter the ancestral mausoleum, Huang Tian wouldn't have helped the 5 major tribes open the ancestral mausoleum so happily. After all, it was all driven by benefits. The demon sword fell into the hands of the Paluo tribe's patriarch, Indra Luo. As for the Buddha blade and the other martial art, sword and saber dual arts, they were taken away by a sect genius. The strength of these 2 people has already stepped into the martial spirit realm. They are not weak. Facing Huang Tian's question, Fei Ren nodded again. However, he deliberately concealed some of the things. After all, it was not good to show off one's wealth. If Huang Tian knew that he had obtained the sword and saber dual arts, there might be some trouble. I see. Narrowing his eyes, Huang Tian put away the wine gourd in his hand in the next moment. Then, he flipped his right palm, and a strange black and white spiritual pearl appeared. At this moment, it was emitting a mysterious life chi. It was the life and death pearl in his dantian. Grinning, Huang Tian looked at Fei Ren again and said faintly, "Boy, it's fate that we met. Since you and I are fated, I'll give you a gift." Although the life and death pearl had completely disappeared, there was still a strand of life chi left in his dantian that had not dissipated. The life and death pearl in his right palm was formed by the remaining life chi. Although there was not much life chi in the life and death pearl, it could still be absorbed by a martial artist to increase his yuan power cultivation. Moreover, the effect of the increase was much better than some tier 6 pills. Looking at the life and death pearl floating in Huang Tian's palm, Fei Ren's eyes focused. This item is called the Pearl of Life and Death. The chi of life and death contained within it can help a martial artist increase their cultivation. Although the chi of life and death in this Pearl of Life and Death is very thin, its effect is not inferior to some 6th-grade elixirs. Boy, this is a good treasure. Keep it well. With a flick of his finger, the life and death pearl was sent to Fei Ren's hand. Huang Tian's face was calm as he said faintly. Chapter 492. Brother Huang, how can I accept this? Fei Ren grinned as he held the Pearl of Life and Death tightly in his hand. He and Huang Tian had only met by chance. Now that Huang Tian had given him such a great gift the moment he attacked, he was greatly surprised. Don't be so polite. After glancing at Fei Ren, Huang Tian waved his hand and said disapprovingly, "Although this Pearl of Life and Death contains a wisp of life spirit chi, with my current yuan power cultivation, this Pearl of Life and Death is not very useful to me. Furthermore, This pearl is even more effective for warriors below the martial spirit realm. Kid, you're only at the 7th level of the martial master realm. If you absorb this pearl of life and death, you can even break through a level. Changing the topic, Huang Tian spoke again. Thank you, elder brother Huang. Seeing this, Fei Ren did not hold back and kept the pearl of life and death in his bag. Indeed, what Huang Tian said was true. Huang Tian was at the 1st level of the martial spirit realm, and his aura was very strong. It seemed that he was not far from the 2nd level of the martial spirit realm. The pearl of life and death was not very useful to him and was only suitable for warriors below the martial spirit realm. Kid, we'll meet again. After giving the pearl of life and death to Fei Ren, Huang Tian took another big gulp of good wine. At the same time, his figure flew into the sky and flew towards the outside of the Qatar desert. The wide sea allows the fish to leap. The high sky allows the birds to fly. Ha ha ha! I can finally leave this godforsaken place. In the distant sky, Huang Tian's thunder-like voice gradually faded away. Then, his figure disappeared into the clouds. This person is really forthright. Looking at Huang Tian's figure gradually disappearing into the sky, Fei Ren reached out and touched his nose. After a while, swoosh. After Huang Tian left, Fei Ren also jumped and flew towards the other side of the Qatar desert, leaving the hillside. During this trip to the ancestral mausoleum, apart from the great improvement of his Yuan power cultivation, Fei Ren had also obtained many opportunities. Apart from the level 8 martial arts, the saber and sword tactics, there was also a rare mother blood essence rock, Big Dipper rock, many medicinal herbs, demon cores, and so on. Before he left the Scorching Sun sect, he only had 2 medium-grade spiritual rings with him. Now he had 5 or 6 medium-grade spiritual rings. Moreover, each medium-grade spiritual ring was filled with treasures. Just the number of low-grade primordial stones and medium-grade primordial stones added up to a few million. Even Immortal Su, Feng Yun, who had brought Fei Ren into the Scorching Sun sect, did not have such a huge amount of wealth. It was obvious that Fei Ren had gained a lot from this trip to the Scorching Sun sect. It was like a windfall from the sky. After leaving the Qatar desert, Fei Ren's goal was to return to the sect first. During this trip, apart from the treasures and primordial stones, there was also the head of a king of sandworms in his spiritual ring. Before Fei Ren left the Raging Flame sect, he had accepted a 5-star sect mission. The mission requirement was to obtain the head of a king of sandworms. As long as he could bring back the head of the king of sandworms from his spirit ring, he would receive 2,000 contribution points. In the Scorching Sun sect, 2,000 contribution points was not a small amount. It was enough to exchange for many good things. Therefore, Fei Ren wanted to return to the Scorching Sun sect as soon as possible to hand in the mission. Northern Continent, Heavenly Star filled in a towering mountain peak. There were many grand palaces. One could vaguely see flowing lights and figures shuttling back and forth. The surrounding spiritual chi was overflowing. The scenery was picturesque, and it was like a legendary fairyland. This was the encampment of the Celestial Arcanum sect. The Celestial Arcanum sect was one of the few large domains in the Northern Continent. It was vast, and there were countless experts in the domain. It was also rumored that the #1 sect in the Black Star Continent, the Heavenly Dragon sect, originated from the Celestial Arcanum sect in the Northern Continent. The sect leader was a disciple of a small sect in the early years. In the end, he founded the Heavenly Dragon sect and became a legendary Emperor realm expert step by step. In the main hall of the Celestial Arcanum sect, a beautiful woman in blue stood quietly. In front of her knelt a young man in a white robe. The atmosphere in the hall was solemn. The young man in the white robe had a delicate appearance. His cultivation was not weak. He was at LV1 Martial Spirit Realm. However, his face was pale. At the same time, his left sleeve was empty. It was obvious that he had lost an arm. Master, this is a Tier 8 spiritual treasure that I obtained from a relic. It's called the Buddha Saber. Sensing the solemn atmosphere in the air, the young man in the white robe pursed his lips. He then took out a mysterious ancient saber that was engraved with Buddhist scriptures from his spiritual ring. However, he did not dare to raise his head to look at the beautiful woman in blue. It's just a tier 8 spiritual treasure, and your left arm was crippled by someone else? Useless thing. Glancing at Emo Chuandao, who was kneeling on the ground, the beautiful woman in blue said coldly, "I'm useless. Please punish me, master." After she finished speaking, Emo Chuandao's face turned pale. He quickly kowtowed and admitted his mistake. Not only was the beautiful woman in blue his master, but she was also the sect leader of the Celestial Arcanum sect. He knew the temperament of the beautiful woman in blue very well. If she knew that he had lost to a LV7 martial master of the same generation and lost an arm, even if he was her disciple, he would not be able to escape punishment. His life might even be in danger. Thinking of this, Emo Chuandao could not help but feel nervous. Who is the person who injured you? Looking at Emo Chuandao, who was kneeling on the ground and trembling, the beautiful woman in blue opened her mouth and spoke again. Her tone was still cold and emotionless. It was like a cold jade in an ice cave, causing people to stay away from her. It's someone from the Eastern Continent's Clear Sea sect. That guy is very strong. He's no weaker than an LV2 martial spirit realm. Moreover, he has an extremely powerful ancient cauldron. Emo Chuandao paused for a moment and said nervously, "Back in the ancestral mausoleum, the terrifying power of Fei Ren's divine immortal cauldron was still vivid in his mind. If he had not severed his arm in time, he might have died on the spot. He would not have had the chance to escape back to the Celestial Arcanum sect." Ancient cauldron? Hearing this, the beautiful woman in blue narrowed her eyes. A hint of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. "Yes, master." Nodding his head, Emo Chuandao's tone was nervous. He did not dare to be careless, as if he was afraid that the beautiful woman in blue would get angry again. Ancient cauldron, could it be that thing? I've been looking for it for so long. Has it finally appeared, seeming to have recalled something? The beautiful woman in blue's face turned cold. At the same time, she clenched her jade-like hands under her sleeves. I got it. Get lost, you useless thing." Waving her sleeves, a gust of strong wind was emitted from the beautiful woman in blue's palm. Then it sent Emo Chuandao, who was kneeling on the ground, flying out of the hall. Landing on the ground, Emo Chuandao spat out a mouthful of blood. In the next moment, his face turned even paler. At the same time, he gritted his teeth and spoke again. "Thank you, master, for not killing me." Chapter 493. Swoosh. Suddenly, another white light flashed out of the hall. In the next moment, a small jade bottle landed at Emo Chuandao's feet. A dark green elixir lay quietly in the bottle. There was a blood-red spot imprinted in the middle of the elixir. One could vaguely smell the elixir fragrance. It seemed to be of high quality. "There's a green lotus serum elixir here. Take it back and heal your injuries. It might even help you break through your cultivation base. Work hard in your cultivation in the future. Don't embarrass the archaic Arcanum sect." Then, the cold voice of the beautiful lady in blue slowly came out from the hall. "Green lotus serum elixir." Emo Chuandao's face froze for a moment. Then he was overjoyed. He bowed to the hall in front of him and said, "Thank you, master. I won't let you down." The green lotus serum elixir was a type of grade 7 elixir. This elixir was refined by combining the main ingredient, the green lotus fruit, the blood dragon beast demon core, and a bunch of rare supplementary ingredients. It could allow a martial artist below the martial king realm to break through one cultivation base unconditionally without any side effects. It was extremely valuable. Other than that, the difficulty of refining the green lotus serum elixir was not low. It was not inferior to some grade 8 elixirs. Even some grade 8 alchemists did not dare to say that they could refine a cauldron of elixirs with a 100% success rate. If they were unlucky, they might fail a few times before successfully refining a cauldron of elixirs. From this, it could be seen how valuable the green lotus serum elixir was. Ordinary low-grade and middle-grade primordial stones could not even buy this elixir. Even if it was exchanged for high-grade primordial stones, it would cost at least a few thousand of them. Only the archaic Arcanum sect master, the beautiful lady in blue in the hall, could casually give away a green lotus serum elixir that was comparable to a grade 8 elixir. Swoosh! Mo Chuandao kept the green lotus serum elixir into his spirit ring. In the next moment, he leaped up and left the hall in a hurry. He did not dare to stay any longer. After Mo Chuandao left, the entire hall fell into silence once again. If I'm not wrong, the divine refining cauldron should have descended on the eastern continent. It's really effortless. Amidst the deathly silence, a hoarse male voice faintly sounded. His tone was cold and indifferent. Then, a burst of light appeared on the beautiful woman in blue. In the next moment, her temperament changed greatly. It was as if she had changed into another person. Her original cold temperament became less feminine, and at the same time, more ferocious. If it's really the divine immortal cauldron, then it's normal that the trash Mo Chuandao is no match for him. At this time, if someone was present, they would be surprised to find that the voice of the beautiful woman in blue was no longer cold and feminine. Instead, it was a deep and hoarse male voice, which was very strange. A female face and a male voice, and it could be switched seamlessly. In the world of martial artists, there was only one possibility for such a situation to occur, and that was possession. Possession was an extremely cruel method of rebirth. After a martial artist reached the martial emperor realm, even if his body was shattered, he would not die on the spot. Instead, he would leave behind a wisp of his soul. With the help of this wisp of soul, he would have a chance to be reborn and start all over again. Although experts above the martial emperor realm could use possession to be reborn, the success rate of possession depended entirely on luck. If the possession failed or the original host's soul resisted, then they would still die. However, the beautiful woman in blue had been possessed. The original host's soul had dissipated and become someone else's body. I must complete the mission given to me by the Lord Immortal Emperor. After taking a deep breath, the beautiful woman in blue's eyes shot out a beam of light that was as dazzling as the galaxy. The beautiful woman in blue's true body was the current sect master of the Celestial Arcanum sect. Her strength was above the martial emperor realm, and she had stepped into the legendary mystic and spirit realms. However, she still could not escape the fate of being possessed. In the end, she died. As for the person who possessed the beautiful woman in blue, it was an immortal who had descended from the immortal world, the Earth Immortal Tao Qian. As an Earth Immortal of the immortal world, Tao Qian's strength was not weak, but it was not top-notch either. There were many powerful immortals above him. From Tao Qian's point of view, he was sent by the immortal world's ruler, the heavenly reaching immortal emperor, to find the divine immortal cauldron. Other than being recognized, it was also a huge opportunity. Although he was only a small Earth immortal, if he could bring the legendary divine immortal cauldron back to the immortal world, he would have a chance to become an even more powerful immortal. He might even become one of the heavenly reaching immortal emperor's confidants. No one would dare to offend him in the immortal world. If it weren't for my injuries, why would I need to use this weak woman's body to recover my strength? Tao Qian seemed to have recalled something. The next moment, he snorted coldly. Then, his temperament changed back to the beautiful woman in blue, and his voice was cold and feminine. Due to the restrictions of the heavenly Tao law, Tao Qian's strength had decreased greatly after leaving the immortal world. He was about the same as an Emperor Realm expert in the human world. After all, in the human world, an Emperor Realm expert was already the top. Once he broke through the Emperor Realm, he would ascend and become an immortal. Therefore, Tao Qian could not use his strength as an Earth immortal. Even so, Tao Qian had just defeated countless experts in the Black Star continent when he came to the lower world. He was still an immortal, but he was injured by a white-robed old man in the Middle Continent's Heavenly Saint Emperor dynasty. His injuries had not healed yet, and the other party was an Emperor Realm expert like him. Although the Emperor Realm expert was the limit of the human world, there was still a gap in strength. The white-robed old man who injured Tao Qian was at the peak of the Emperor Realm. He was strong enough to look down on the entire Black Star continent. It won't be long before I can recover from my injuries. Then, no matter who gets the divine Immortal Cauldron, they will die. She withdrew her mind. In the next moment, the beautiful woman in blue revealed a ferocious expression, after which her figure flashed and disappeared from the hall. At the same time, in the Scorching Sun sect in the Eastern Continent, after spending nearly half a month, Feiren finally returned to the Scorching Sun sect. I'm finally back. Looking at the familiar scene of the mountain gate and the black and white yin-yang fish shadows in the sky, Feiren was filled with emotions. This time, he had left the sect to gain experience, and it had taken him a few months. Fortunately, it was all worth it. His original energy cultivation had not only broken through to LV7 Martial Master Realm, but he had also obtained many opportunities and treasures. Zhu Wuchang, it won't be long before you die. A familiar red-haired figure appeared in his mind. The next moment, Fei Ren clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Previously, he had almost died at the hands of Zhu Wuchang at Taiyang Peak. If not for his strong physical defense and the restrictions of the sect's rules, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Those who kill will be killed by others. Therefore, when he returned to the Scorching Sun sect, Fei Ren's plan was clear. He wanted to break through the combat strength ranking and then be promoted to an inner disciple. He wanted to kill Zhu Wuchang, who was ranked 12th on the combat strength ranking, to prevent future troubles. Before leaving the Scorching Sun sect, he had made a life-and-death bet with Zhu Wuchang. Since it was a life-and-death bet, they would fight to the death. Chapter 494. In front of the mountain gate of the Scorching Sun sect, two outer sect disciples stood quietly. "Greetings, Senior." As Fei Ren's figure approached, one of the younger outer sect disciples also took a step forward, cupped his hands, and bowed respectfully. Although his Yuan power cultivation was not high, only around level 3 Martial Master, he could sense that Fei Ren's aura was not ordinary. He was not an ordinary outer sect disciple, and his Yuan power cultivation was much higher than his own. In the Scorching Sun sect, seniority was not determined by age, but by strength. Although Fei Ren looked very young, his strength was very strong. His Yuan power cultivation was not weaker than a level 7 Martial Master. Therefore, the outer sect disciple did not dare to be negligent. He looked at Fei Ren with eyes full of respect. Behind him, another outer court disciple beside him also cupped his hands and bowed. His face was full of respect. In the face of the two outer sect disciples' compliments, Fei Ren only nodded in response. In the next moment, his speed did not decrease as he flew towards Taiyang Peak. This senior looks a little unfamiliar. Looking at Fei Ren's back, the outer sect disciple in charge of guarding the mountain gate spoke again with a slightly surprised tone. In the Scorching Sun sect, there were not many inner sect disciples. There were only about 100 of them. Therefore, every inner sect disciple had some reputation in the sect. He must have just been promoted to an inner sect disciple. As soon as he finished speaking, the other outer court disciple sighed with emotion, and a trace of envy also gushed out from his face. The Yuan power aura on Fei Ren's body was very strong. He had already reached level 7 Martial Master. In the Scorching Sun sect, those with Yuan power cultivation above level 7 Martial Master were mostly inner sect disciples. They were the elites of the elites. Therefore, the two outer sect disciples also thought that Lin Fan was an inner sect disciple. Little did they know that Fei Ren, who had just returned from his training, was only an outer sect disciple. Moreover, he had just been promoted and left the sect to train. Soon, Fei Ren returned to his mansion at Taiyang Peak. The scenery in front of him was picturesque. Everything was the same as before, except for the greenery at the entrance. It's been almost 2 months, and I haven't received my salary yet. Unknowingly, More than 2 months had passed since he left the Scorching Sun sect to train. During these 2 months, Faerun did not have the opportunity to receive his salary, which was his contribution points. In the Scorching Sun sect, servant disciples could only receive 5 contribution points per month, while new disciples received 20. As for an outer disciple like Faerun, he could receive 50 contribution points per month, which would add up to 100 contribution points for 2 months. Although it wasn't a lot, it was a free gift, so it would be a waste not to take it. Taking advantage of others had always been Faerun's principle. Inside the mansion, Faerun took out a large pile of items from his spirit ring, including many herbs, demon cores, and spirit items. These items were all collected by him, other than the Pearl of Life and Death that Huang Tian had given him. Most of them were found in the ancestral tomb and were priceless. The Pearl of Life and Death. After absorbing a part of the Vitality Chi, my Yuan power cultivation should be able to break through to level 8 Martial Master. Playing with the black and white Pearl of Life and Death in his hand, Faerun sat down cross-legged and started to absorb the Vitality Chi in it. Walla walla. Along with the guidance of the cultivation method, wisps of pure spiritual Chi also swept out and then surged into his 8 extraordinary meridians and dantian. Faced with the influx of Vitality Chi, Faerun's meridians and dantian were like starving babies, frantically absorbing the Vitality Chi. Soon, he reached the edge of the realm barrier and was only a step away from breaking through. A few minutes later, Kacha! In his dantian, a sound like an egg cracking could be heard. In the next moment, Faerun's Yuan power aura skyrocketed and reached level 8 Martial Master. After refining the Pearl of Life and Death, he finally stepped into level 8 Martial Master and his strength improved. Swoosh! Slowly exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Faerun immediately got up and left the mansion. He ran towards the main peak where the sect hall was located. Before entering the combat strength ranking, he had to make a trip to the sect hall. In addition to handing in the 5-star mission, he could also receive his own salary in exchange for contribution points. Compared to the small trading market in the Disciples' Peak, Faerun was more interested in the items in the Scorching Sun sect's treasury. Generally, the items that could be placed in the Scorching Sun sect's treasury were not ordinary items and required a large amount of contribution points to exchange for them. Therefore, the few thousand contribution points he had were not enough. Faerun wanted more contribution points. Sect Hall. Senior, I'm here to hand in the mission. As soon as he stepped into the hall, Faerun came to a window and took out a huge package from his spiritual ring and threw it to the other party. Inside the package was the head of a Sandworm King. The 5-star mission that he had accepted previously required him to obtain the head of a Sandworm King. Inside the window was a middle-aged man. He looked slightly mature, and his origin energy cultivation was not too weak. He had reached level 10 Martial Master. The head of a Sandworm King. When he opened the package, the middle-aged man's eyes widened in surprise, and he looked surprised. After all, a Sandworm King's demonic energy fluctuation was at least at the advanced spiritual level. It was comparable to a level 8 Martial Master expert and was extremely difficult to deal with. Moreover, sandworms were demonic beasts that lived in groups. A Sandworm King would be followed by a group of sandworms. It was difficult to kill them, and even a level 8 Martial Master expert could fail miserably. On the other hand, Faerun looked very young and did not seem to have the strength of a level 8 Martial Master. Senior, please don't waste my time. As if sensing the middle-aged man's thoughts, Faerun released a wisp of origin energy fluctuation and said lightly, Level 8 Martial Master. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and came back to his senses in the next moment. Lin Fan's cultivation had already reached LV 8 Martial Master and was comparable to the top of the intersect disciples. It was not strange that he could kill a Sandworm King. You have accepted a 5-star mission and will be rewarded with 2,000 contribution points. These 2,000 contribution points have been distributed to your identity token. After putting the Sandworm King's head into his bag, the middle-aged man spoke again. He looked at Faerun with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Lin Fan was young and looked to be in his early 19 years old. However, he already had a level 8 martial master cultivation. With such talent and strength, even in the Scorching Sun sect, it was difficult for the middle-aged man to not look at him in a new light. In addition to this, please help me exchange these things for contribution points. As soon as he finished speaking, Fei Ren took out several large packages from his spiritual ring. They were all demonic cores and medicinal herbs that he had obtained from the ancestral tomb. Although these things were valuable, they were useless to him for the time being. He might as well exchange them for contribution points. After all, contribution points were the hard currency in the Scorching Sun sect. They were equivalent to primordial stones and sometimes even more useful than primordial stones. Oh, okay. Facing the large packages that Fei Ren handed over, the middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. Then he began to count the items. After a while, the demonic cores and medicinal herbs were counted. If they were to be exchanged for contribution points, it would be close to 18,000 contribution points. Together with the contribution points from the previous mission, Fei Ren now had about 20,000 contribution points. 20,000 contribution points was a huge sum of money in the Scorching Sun sect. Even the top 10 inner disciples might not be as rich as Fei Ren. Thank you. Fei Ren was very satisfied with the contribution points exchanged this time. The next moment, he cupped his hands at the middle-aged man and turned to leave the sect hall. The younger generation will surpass us in time. If this kid doesn't die prematurely in the future, he will definitely become someone great. Seeing Fei Ren's figure gradually disappear, the middle-aged man's face was filled with emotions. After all, exchanging so many contribution points at once was rare even for the top 10 inner disciples. Chapter 495. After leaving the sect hall, Fei Ren did not return to his mansion at Taiyang Peak. Instead, he went straight to the Challenge Arena. The Challenge Arena was located in the hinterland of the Scorching Sun sect. It was one of the many peaks, and the atmosphere was usually lively. Other than the combat power ranking, many Scorching Sun sect disciples would spar with each other in the Challenge Arena every day and practice their martial arts. Fei Ren took out his identity token from his spiritual ring and scanned it quickly. Outer Disciple, Fei Ren Combat Power Ranking, 283 deeds. Defeated Qing Yi, one of the top 10 Outer Disciples. Others unknown, this was his current ranking on the Combat Power Ranking. When he defeated Qing Yi, one of the top 10 Outer Disciples, Fei Ren took his place. I didn't expect myself to be so unimpressive. Fei Ren let out a dry smile as he looked at the end of the list. From the records on his identity token, it could be seen that other than defeating Qing Yi, one of the top 10 Outer Disciples, he was not popular in the Scorching Sun sect. He was just a passerby that no one knew about. Forget it. Let's aim for the ranking first. Collecting his thoughts, Fei Ren leaped into the air and arrived at one of the challenge arenas. There were many challenge arenas on this mountain peak, which could accommodate dozens of battles at the same time. Hence, the Scorching Sun sect disciples did not have to worry about queuing up. Swoosh! Fei Ren's figure landed steadily on the ground, and in the next moment, his opponent followed closely behind. The opponent was an Outer Disciple. His cultivation was neither high nor low, reaching level 4 Martial Master. At the same time, he was ranked 290th on the Combat Power Ranking, which was not much different from him. Please, Tisk. The Outer Disciple cupped his hands at Fei Ren. However, before he could finish a sentence, he was sent flying by Fei Ren's punch. He landed heavily outside the arena, foaming at the mouth. He had lost his ability to fight. Next, Fei Ren's face was calm, and his body was still standing in the same place. Although this Outer Disciple was strong, he was still too weak to interest him. He could not even force him to use 30% of his strength. Damn, so strong. Not only is this brat strong, he is also arrogant. That person was a level 4 Martial Master, but he was still killed in an instant. I wonder which rising star it is. At this moment, the scene of Fei Ren killing his opponent with one punch instantly attracted a lot of attention. For a moment, Everyone looked towards the battle arena where Fei Run was at. In addition to some of the outer disciples, there were also many odd job disciples who came to watch the show. The sounds of discussion were endless. Boom! A few minutes later, another outer disciple came to challenge Fei Run, but he was still killed by Fei Run with one punch. He spat out a mouthful of blood and left the arena clean and tidy. After a while, Fei Run defeated 9 challengers. Among them, there was no lack of LV6 Martial Master Realm newcomers. At the same time, his ranking on the combat strength list rose rapidly. Soon, he was ranked around 120, shocking everyone present. Moreover, these opponents were all killed by a single punch, without exception. Another one-hit kill. Gue. This is already 9 consecutive victories. Is this guy going to keep winning? Don't tell me he is going to break Zhang Liang's record of 10 consecutive victories. Seeing Fei Run defeating another challenger with one punch, the outside of the arena was in an uproar. Countless shocked gazes looked towards Fei Run on the stage, and discussions were endless. Everyone had an identity token in their hands and could check the specific ranking on the combat strength list. At the same time, they also knew that Fei Run was only an outer disciple and not an inner disciple. Among the outer disciples, the one who currently held the record of 10 consecutive victories was the current number 1 outer disciple, Zhang Liang. His record was 10 consecutive victories. At this moment, Fei Run had also reached 9 consecutive victories. He was only one battle away from breaking Zhang Liang's record of 10 consecutive victories. In the arena, a storm was brewing. I am an outer disciple, Zhang. Brat, your good luck has come to an end. Just as Fei Run was quietly waiting for his opponent, a burly middle-aged man jumped onto the stage. His face was ferocious, and he was full of vigor. Below the stage, he had also witnessed Fei Run's battle. Although his opponent's strength was not ordinary, the burly middle-aged man, named Zhang, did not show much fear. This was because he was the current number 2 outer disciple, and his Yuan power cultivation had reached level 7 Martial Master. He was ranked 100 on the combat strength list. Compared to the previous challengers, his strength was much stronger. Let's do it. Glancing at the ferocious Zhang, Fei Run did not waste any more words. His right palm immediately released strands of powerful golden Yuan power. Although his opponent's Yuan power cultivation was at level 7 Martial Master, he was still no match for Sumo Arrogant. When he saw that Fei Run was still as calm as ever, Zhang was instantly enraged. He raised his hand and sent a palm strike towards Fei Run. Surging Yuan power swept forth, transforming into a brownish-yellow Yuan power palm strike. It was an impressive sight. Bang! However, in the face of Zhang's biting cold attack, Fei Run did not dodge. Instead, he also threw out a punch. Boom! When the fist and palm collided, the golden light was extinguished and a huge shockwave swept outwards. Pucci! Zhang's face turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if he could not withstand the impact. His entire body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Finally, he landed heavily on the ground, and his aura plummeted. Zhang, who was at level 7 Martial Master and ranked 100 on the combat strength list, was still no match for Fei Run. He was instantly killed by a punch. These people are too weak. It seems that I need to challenge stronger opponents. After defeating Zhang, Fei Run's face was calm. He was not too surprised. He took out his identity token from his spiritual ring and checked his latest ranking. Just as he had expected, after this battle, his ranking on the combat strength list had been refreshed, and he had successfully entered the top 100. According to Fei Run's estimation, after this wave of 10 consecutive victories, he would be rewarded by the sect. After all, every Scorching Sun sect disciple would be rewarded by the sect for advancing on the combat strength list. The higher the ranking, the better the reward. This was also a way for the sect to motivate the disciples. This Fei Run is too strong. Another one has been defeated. Even Zhang, who was ranked second in the outer sect, was no match for him. What a monster! That Gao Yunshun, who was ranked first among the newcomers, was also a monster. Who would have thought that there would be another one? At this time, outside the battle arena, the crowd of spectating disciples was shocked, and they were discussing fervently. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked at Fei Ren. After all, Fei Ren had already won 10 consecutive battles. He had successfully entered the top 100 on the combat strength list. Even Yi Zhang, who was ranked second in the outer sect and ranked 100 on the combat strength list, was no match for him. Jiang Liang, who is ranked first in the outer sect and is known as the Martial Shield. It's your turn now. Fei Ren glanced at the identity token. In the next moment, he clenched his fists and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. At the same time, in a mansion on Taiyang Peak, Wang Long, Fei Ren is back. Looking at Wang Long, who was panting in front of him, Gao Yunxin's face was calm. When he was still a new disciple, he had a good relationship with Wang Long. They even lived in the same courtyard. Now, Wang Long had successfully broken through to the Martial Master realm and become an outer sect disciple. However, Wang Long's primary power cultivation was only at level 1 Martial Master realm. Moreover, he had just broken through, so there was still a big gap between him and Gao Yunxin. Yeah, that kid is too strong. He just came back not long ago and is already rushing to the combat strength list. Now, he has won so many consecutive battles that he has gone crazy. He is squeezed into the top 100. All right, I heard that he's going to challenge Jiang Liang, who is ranked first in the outer sect. Wang Long reached out to wipe the sweat on his forehead. Then he panted, his tone full of shock. It was not that he liked to make a fuss, but Fei Ren's strength was too abnormal. He could actually win so many consecutive battles and kill his way into the top 100 of the combat strength list. After all, a few months ago, Wang Long had just broken through to level 1 Martial Master realm. Although he defeated Qing Yi, who was slightly famous on the combat strength list, Qing Yi's strength was not too strong. His ranking on the combat strength list was also at the bottom. However, in just a few months, Fei Ren's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Now he had killed his way into the top 100 of the combat strength list. It could be said that his progress was godly. Jiang Liang, who is known as Wu Dun, the number 1 outer sect disciple. Fei Ren wants to challenge him now. Hearing this, Gao Yunxin's eyes narrowed. A rare trace of surprise appeared on his cold and calm face. Chapter 496. Gao Yunxin had just been promoted to an outer disciple and did not have much information. However, he had heard of the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang, who was known as Wu Dun. Not only was he one of the few outer sect disciples who had made it into the top 100 of the combat strength list, but his origin energy cultivation had already reached LV8 Martial Master realm. He was very powerful and was not weaker than some of the inner sect disciples. He had some reputation in the Scorching Sun sect. Aside from that, Jiang Liang was best at defense. He was well versed in the concept of earth and several high-level martial arts. Among the outer disciples, he was known as Wu Dun. He was the leader of the top 10 outer disciples and the number 1 outer disciple of the Scorching Sun sect. Although Gao Yunxin had never exchanged blows with the other party before, he was still able to glean some information from the identity token. According to the disciple's personal information on the identity token, Jiang Liang's attack was average and could not be compared to most sword cultivators and geniuses of the same generation. However, under full defense, he was like an indestructible human shield. Even inner disciples like Zhu Wuchang would find it difficult to deal with him. As for why Jiang Liang had not been promoted to an inner disciple, there were many different opinions in the Scorching Sun sect. No one knew. Perhaps only Jiang Liang himself knew. Fei Ren may be improving rapidly, but it will not be easy for him to defeat the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang. He is still too impatient. Thinking of this, Gao Yunxin frowned and said, after more than 2 months of cultivation, his Yuan power cultivation had broken through several levels and stepped into level 4 Martial Master realm. Although he was not as good as Fei Ren, it was still very rare and could be called a genius. In his opinion, Fei Ren had just returned from the outside world. No matter how much his strength improved, it was still limited and could not compete with Jiang Liang, who was at level 8 Martial Master Realm. After all, when he left the Scorching Sun sect, Jiang Liang's Yuan power cultivation was only at level 2 Martial Master Realm. Who knows? Wang Long shrugged in response to Gao Yunshin's speculation. At the same time, he suggested, however, that kid seems to be determined to fight with Jiang Liang. Right now, the battlefield is very lively. Should we go take a look? For Wang Long, although Fei Ren didn't have much contact with him, he was still an old friend. After all, Fei Ren had saved his cousin, Wang Deshu, from Tao Jin's hands and forced the deacon, Hirong, to retreat. He still couldn't forget this kindness. Go! Nodding his head, Gao Yunshin also ended his cultivation state. Then, he flew toward the outside world. Although he agreed to go to the battlefield with Wang Long, his purpose was not to watch the fun, but to see how much Fei Ren's strength had grown in the past 2 months. After all, the scene of him being severely injured by Zhu Wuchang at Grand Sun Peak was still fresh in his mind. Although Gao Yunshin hadn't interfered with the grudge between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang, he could more or less guess what was going on. If this kid could defeat the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang, who is known as the Martial Shield, he might really have a chance to take revenge on Zhu Wuchang. Gao Yunshin's eyes were solemn as he thought to himself, "Hey, old Gao, wait for me." Seeing Gao Yunshin leave and fly toward the mountain peak where the challenge was, Wang Long, who was at the side, was also stunned for a moment. He quickly followed behind. Scorching Sun sect, battlefield. At this time, the severely injured Heizhong had already been carried away. However, the rumored number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang, who was known as the Martial Shield, had yet to appear. No one dares to fight with me? After a few minutes, Fei Ren realized that no one wanted to go up the stage. His voice was full of provocation. Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a black-robed figure suddenly rushed out from the crowd and landed steadily in front of Fei Ren. The black-robed figure was a young man. At this moment, the left side of his face was covered with a half-bronze mask. His expression was cold and calm, and at the same time, there was a frightening green force surrounding him. Martial Shield, Jiang Liang. Seeing the black-robed youth appear, the crowd below the stage was shocked. Some of them instantly recognized the identity of the newcomer. It's the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang. Is this battle finally going to start? I wonder if the dark horse called Fei Ren will win, or if Jiang Liang's strength is a notch higher. The moment Jiang Liang appeared, the atmosphere of the battlefield instantly rose to a climax. Many Scorching Sun sect disciples had gathered, and most of them were outer disciples. After all, the upcoming battle was of great significance. Moreover, both sides had powerful backgrounds. On the battlefield, Fei Ren had just experienced 10 consecutive victories and was in the limelight. As for the other person, it was Jiang Liang, who was known as the Martial Shield and the leader of the top 10 outer disciples. Such a top-notch battle naturally attracted countless gazes. Are you the number 1 outer disciple? Looking at the black-robed youth with a half-bronze mask not far away, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes. The origin energy fluctuation of the other party was not weaker than his. He had also reached LV8 Martial Master Realm. In addition, he felt a heavy earth aura from the other party. Jiang Liang seemed to be a martial artist who had a deep understanding of the earth aura. His defense was amazing. That's me. In the face of Fei Ren's probing, the black-robed youth's face was solemn, and he only nodded. Although the other party was not as famous as him, he had won 10 consecutive victories and defeated the number 2 outer disciple, Heizhong, with 1 punch. His strength was extraordinary and could not be underestimated. I've heard of your strength for a long time. With a grin, Fei Ren said. His opponent was proficient in defense, and his essence force cultivation was not any weaker than Jiang Yi's. In this battle, he couldn't use the Dharma Fist to kill him like he did with Heizhong and the others. He would have to expend more effort. Your strength isn't bad either. Your moves are extremely aggressive, comparable to a sharp spear. If it were any other cultivator of the same level instead of this Jiang, I'm afraid that no one would be able to take a punch from you. However, changing the topic, Jiang Liang said coldly, if you want to defeat me, it won't be that easy. Oh, then let's see if your shield is stronger or my spear is stronger. Without any superfluous words, Fei Ren leaped out and attacked Jiang Liang. He chose to take the initiative. Boom! A large amount of golden origin energy swept out and turned into a fierce origin energy fist. It was aimed at Jiang Liang, who was not far away, with an imposing aura. Fei Ren had cultivated the level 7 Dharma fist to perfection. Even if he did not use the power of the Dharma Golden Buddha body, the power of his fist was not something an ordinary martial artist could resist. Anyone below LV-10 Martial Master Realm would either die or be injured. Fei Ren's goal was simple as he used his ultimate skill without any probing. He wanted to test the defense of Jiang Liang, who was known as the Martial Shield, to see just how strong his defense was. Chapter 497. Level 7 Martial Arts. As the number 1 outer disciple and a LV-8 martial master genius, Jiang Liang could naturally tell that Fei Ren's punch was extraordinarily powerful. Boom! Jiang Liang stomped his feet on the ground and opened his arms. Strands of origin energy swept out and instantly condensed into a huge brownish-yellow barrier. At the same time, a thick earth aura appeared spontaneously and burst out from the depths of Jiang Liang's dantian. At this moment, he was like an unshakable mountain, intending to take Fei Ren's attack head-on. The earth concept had superb defensive power. Kaboom! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the golden fist energy also pierced through the air and finally smashed heavily on the brownish-yellow barrier. Crack! A breath later, accompanied by the sound of glass shattering, a few spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the brownish-yellow barrier. Finally, it collapsed with a loud bang and turned into wisps of nothingness. On the other hand, although Jiang Liang's defensive barrier was broken, he was unscathed. He blocked it. Outside the arena, the spectating disciples were also shocked. After all, the scene of Fei Ren winning 10 consecutive victories was still vivid in everyone's mind. Moreover, he had defeated his opponent with a single punch, clean and tidy. However, Jiang Liang in front of them had broken their perception and blocked the power of Fei Ren's punch. It seems that Jiang Liang is still stronger. Although Fei Ren can break Jiang Liang's defense, it won't be easy to defeat Jiang Liang. No wonder he's the number 1 outer disciple. I guess other than the top 10 inner disciples, no one could do anything to Jiang Liang. Who knows? This Fei Ren can win 10 consecutive victories. His strength is naturally not bad. A few outer disciples discussed and seemed to think that the battle was already decided. However, more Scorching Sun sect disciples were in a state of observation, seemingly wanting to see who would have the last laugh in the arena. Indeed, he has some skills. On the opposite side of the arena, seeing that Jiang Liang had blocked his punch, Fei Ren also stopped and stood there with a thoughtful look on his face. Not only was his opponent the number 1 outer disciple, but he was also known as Wu Dun. His defense was naturally extraordinary, so it was not surprising that he was able to block his punch. However, he did not use the power of the Dharma Golden Buddha body in that punch, nor did he use any of his other trump cards. On the other side of the reflection, Jiang Liang had not only used the power of the concept of earth in order to block his punch, but he had also defended with all his strength. From this, one could see the difference in strength between the two sides. Although Jiang Liang was several times stronger than He Zhang and the others, he was still too weak in Fei Ren's eyes. You aren't weak, but you can't defeat me just by breaking through my defense. Jiang Liang deeply exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In the next moment, the yuan power around his body also surged, after which it once again condensed into numerous brownish-yellow barriers. At the same time, it covered several dozen feet below his feet. It seemed that he did not intend to take the initiative to attack. Instead, he was displaying his strength. Defend as an attack, temporarily avoid the sharp edge. This was Jiang Liang's battle strategy. From his point of view, if he continued to attack, it would exhaust Fei Rin's yuan power greatly. As long as Fei Rin's essence energy was exhausted, he would have the opportunity to launch a counterattack, trying to drag me to death with a tortoise shell. At the same time, Fei Rin also noticed Jiang Liang's actions. At this moment, the corner of his mouth also curled into a smile. Although Jiang Liang's idea was good, he had picked the wrong opponent. Although the concept of Earth that Jiang Liang had comprehended was good at defense, it paled in comparison to Fei Rin's Dharma, Golden Buddha body. It was not worth mentioning. Moreover, from the previous fight, Fei Rin had also seen through Jiang Liang's background. Although Jiang Liang had comprehended the concept of Earth, he had not mastered it well. He had only reached the Greater Mastery realm and was still far from the complete realm. Even the complete realm's concept power could not defeat Fei Rin's Dharma Golden Buddha body, let alone the Greater Mastery concept of Earth. Boom! In the next moment, a Golden Buddha shadow suddenly appeared. At the same time, Fei Rin's entire body's aura increased tremendously. His entire body was covered in layers of scarlet golden light. His yuan power fluctuation was close to the martial spirit realm. What kind of martial arts is that? In the face of Fei Rin's sudden increase in strength, everyone was dumbfounded. The scene was as silent as death. After all, the aura of the Golden Buddha shadow behind Jiang Liang was too shocking. It was as if the real Golden Buddha had descended to the world. It was so powerful that it instantly covered half of the battle arena. The aura of the martial spirit realm. How is that possible? In the battle arena, the wind and clouds were surging. Facing Fei Rin, whose aura had increased tremendously, Jiang Liang's expression changed slightly. At that moment, he felt the threat of death from Jiang Liang's body. Obviously, Jiang Liang had the ability to kill him. 5 Gates Hidden Armor. When faced with a life and death crisis, Jiang Liang shouted out explosively as well, and he immediately utilized his special ability. Earth concept was completely released, and, at the same time, strands of origin energy swept out. After that, it transformed into a 5-pattern shield that protected his entire body, causing his defensive strength to increase by a level. The 5 Gates Hidden Armor was his strongest defensive martial art. It was enough to withstand a full blow from an LV-10 martial master. In addition, Jiang Liang had set up dozens of brownish-yellow yuan power barriers a few feet under his feet. With the double defense, he was already in his strongest state. Break! Under Jiang Liang's full defense, Fei Rin's figure moved. He took a step forward and cut through the air, rolling up bursts of golden light. In the next moment, he punched out in the air and aimed at Jiang Liang, who was not far away. Roar! The majestic golden yuan power, mixed with the biting cold fist force, instantly turned into a roaring golden dragon. It was terrifying. Although Jiang Liang had used a double defense, Fei Rin had also used all of his strength in this punch. Coupled with the power of the Dharma Golden Buddha body, the power was several times stronger than before. Bang! Rumble! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the golden dragon slammed into the yuan power barrier. In an instant, the barrier shattered. The 5 Gates Hidden Armor that Jiang Liang had used could only resist the golden dragon for a few breaths of time. It also shattered and dissipated into nothingness. Boom! After breaking through Jiang Liang's defense, the golden dragon's power did not diminish. In the end, it smashed into Jiang Liang's chest. In an instant, the yuan power exploded, bringing with it a burst of whistling wind. It also caused the spectating disciples to take a few steps back. Pucci! After suffering a heavy blow to his chest, Jiang Liang spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his entire body fell to the ground. His face became extremely pale. At this moment, his robes were tattered and his body was covered with wounds and bloodstains. You lost, I lost. After landing on the ground, Fei Rin quietly looked at Jiang Liang, who was not far away from him. Jiang Liang gritted his teeth unwillingly and revealed a bitter smile. In this battle, he had indeed been completely defeated. There was no suspense. The strongest defense that he was proud of was still unable to resist Fei Rin's biting cold attack. Fei Rin won. Even the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang, was defeated. I didn't expect this kid's strength to grow so quickly. At this time, just as Fei Rin defeated Jiang Liang, Wang Long and Gao Yunshin, who were not far away from the stage, were also stunned. Although they had just arrived at the battlefield, they had seen the battle between Fei Rin and Jiang Liang. After this battle, he should be able to be promoted to an inner disciple. Retracting his gaze, Gao Yunshin said. Although Jiang Liang was an outer disciple, his strength was not weaker than some inner disciples. Moreover, he was ranked 82nd on the combat strength list. In essence, he was already an inner disciple. He only lacked one identity. And today, Fei Rin had defeated Jiang Liang. There was no doubt that he would be promoted to an inner disciple. Chapter 498. Who would have thought that even the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang, would be defeated? A level 8 martial master who defeated the number 1 outer disciple, Jiang Liang. This person is qualified to be promoted to an inner disciple, Fei Rin. I think it was also him who defeated one of the top 10 outer disciples, Qing Yi. What a genius! After Jiang Liang's defeat, the spectating disciples broke out into discussion. Everyone looked at Fei Rin with shock in their eyes. You are very strong. Other than the top 10 inner disciples, no one can stop you. On the field, Jiang Liang slowly climbed up from the ground. In the next moment, he took off the bronze mask on his left cheek, revealing a terrifying face. The left side of Jiang Liang's face was blood red, as if a huge birthmark was engraved on it. Moreover, there were blue veins popping out of his eye sockets, as if they were snakes coiling around him. He looked so terrifying that no one dared to look at him directly. What's wrong with this guy's face? Seeing this, Fei Rin furrowed his eyebrows and felt a chill run down his spine. It was not that he was afraid of anything, but the left side of Jiang Liang's face was so hideous that it was indescribable. It was as if his face was disfigured. At this moment, he finally understood why his opponent had been wearing half a bronze mask on his left face. The reason was self-evident. Hee, did I scare you? Seeing Fei Rin's reaction, Jiang Liang grinned. He then took out a new bronze mask from his spirit ring and put it on. At the same time, he covered half of his ugly face as he said in a playful tone. After the previous fierce battle, not only was Jiang Liang's robe severely damaged, even the bronze mask on his left face was broken. He could no longer wear it and needed a new one. Therefore, his real face was exposed in front of everyone. Ever since he entered the Scorching Sun sect, Jiang Liang had been wearing half a bronze mask, so very few people had seen his real face. He was quite mysterious. No, I just find it strange. Is this the reason why you didn't become an inner disciple? In the face of Jiang Liang's ridicule, Fei Rin shook his head and said unhurriedly. As the number 1 disciple of the outer sect, his Yuan power cultivation had already reached the 8th level of the martial master realm. He was not weaker than Zhu Wuchang back then. However, he had not been promoted to an outer sect disciple for a long time. This made him feel extremely strange. In the Scorching Sun sect, the difference between an outer disciple and an inner disciple was not only their monthly salary, but also their popularity and attention. Almost every inner disciple was well known in the Scorching Sun sect. According to Fei Rin's guess, perhaps it was because of the disfigurement on the left side of his face, Jiang Liang seemed to be unwilling to be the center of attention, so he had never taken the initiative to be promoted to an inner court disciple. In my opinion, there isn't much difference between an inner disciple and an outer disciple. It's just those few hundred contribution points. Compared to this, strength is more important. Jiang Liang put on the bronze mask again and said faintly. As expected, as his voice fell, Fei Rin grinned and was even more certain of his judgment. Although Jiang Liang was stubborn about his ugly face on the surface, he was very conflicted and did not want to mention it too much. Goodbye. As a loser, Jiang Liang did not seem to want to talk nonsense at this time. He only cupped his hands at Fei Run and then left the arena, his figure gradually disappearing from everyone's sight. This guy's ego is very strong. Looking at Jiang Liang's back, Fei Run shrugged his shoulders and left as well. Brother Fei, congratulations on defeating the #1 disciple of the outer sect, Jiang Liang. With your strength, becoming an inner court disciple is already a foregone conclusion. As soon as he left the arena, he saw Wang Long coming towards him with a smile on his face. When Fei Run first entered the Scorching Sun sect, they were in the same batch of new disciples. They lived in the same courtyard and had a good relationship. Therefore, when he saw that Wang Long had successfully broken the winning streak record and defeated the #1 disciple of the outer sect, Jiang Liang, he hurried over to congratulate him. Wang Long, so it's you. Long time no see. Seeing that it was Wang Long, Fei Run was stunned for a moment, but then he smiled and greeted him. Other than Feng Yin, Wang Long was one of the few friends he knew. They were also in the same batch of new disciples, so he naturally would not forget him. Jiang Liang is ranked 82nd on the combat strength list. At the same time, he is also the only person in the outer sect who made it into the top 100. This time, you defeated him. Other than occupying his ranking, you can also get a lot of rewards from the sect. As the two finished speaking, Gao Yinshin stepped forward with a serious expression. After all, it had only been 2 months. He did not expect Wang Long's strength to grow to such a level. With your strength, it won't be long before you become an inner court disciple. He shifted his gaze and looked at Gao Yinshin. Fei Run shrugged and said in a meaningful tone, Wang Long was a genius in the way of the sword. He held the famous Shangyang sword in the Spiritual Sword Manual. Back then, he had also defeated one of the top 10 outer court disciples, Meng Ji. His talent and potential were not weak. Moreover, even if his Yuan power cultivation had broken through to level 8 martial master, he still could not see through Gao Yinshin. Although Wang Long's Yuan power cultivation was only at level 4 martial master, Fei Run vaguely felt that Wang Long was not as simple as he looked. He was also an opponent that could not be underestimated. Therefore, he did not underestimate Gao Yinshin just because he had defeated the #1 disciple of the outer sect, Jiang Liang. What do you plan to do next? In the face of Fei Ren's flattery, Gao Yinshin's expression did not change at all as he said indifferently. He also knew about the grudge between Wang Long and the inner court genius, Zhu Wuchang. Back at Taiyang Peak, Zhu Wuchang had brought Ma Kuai and his underlings to attack. Not only did they severely injure Fei Run, they also almost killed him. Now that Fei Run had returned from training in the outside world and his strength had greatly increased, this grudge would naturally not be easily resolved. Reforge my weapon, then find that grandson Zhu Wuchang to settle the score. I want that grandson to pay for that palm strike at Taiyang Peak with his life. Fei Run did not keep Wang Long in suspense as he pulled out the Azure Dragon halberd from his back. His eyes revealed a trace of killing intent. As his strength continued to increase, the Azure Dragon halberd in his hand became weaker and weaker. After all, the Azure Dragon halberd was only a grade 5 spiritual treasure. He also did not forget the life and death battle back then. Zhu Wuchang. Wang Long's expression changed slightly as he sensed a trace of killing intent surging out of Fei Ren's body. After all, Zhu Wuchang's background was not small, as he was an inner court genius disciple. Moreover, in the past 2 months, Zhu Wuchang's strength had also improved rapidly. Not only did he enter the top 10 of the inner court, but he also successfully reached the 5th place on the combat strength list. Now that he knew that Fei Ren's enemy was Zhu Wuchang, Wang Long was naturally shocked. I heard that Zhu Wuchang's cultivation has already broken through to the 10th level of the martial master realm. Moreover, his overall strength is not weaker than a half-step martial spirit realm expert. In the face of Fei Ren's murderous intent, Gao Yinshin said in a meaningful tone. It was not that he did not think highly of Zhu Wuchang, but Zhu Wuchang's strength was extremely strong, far stronger than He Zhang and Jiang Liang. Either he dies in this battle, or I die. Shaking his head, Fei Rin's expression was calm, as if he had made up his mind to kill. Swoosh! Seeing this scene, Gao Yunshin also fell into silence. He did not say anything else and turned around to leave the battlefield. It seemed that after seeing Zhu Wuchang's strength increase by leaps and bounds, the unwillingness to admit defeat in his heart was stimulated, and he planned to go into seclusion to cultivate. Chapter 499. This guy is still so cold. He left us like that, Wang Long said as he watched Gao Yunshin leave the arena. At the same time, he spread out his hands. He was not surprised that Gao Yunshin had always been like this. Brother Fei, do you have a grudge against Zhu Wuchang? Wang Long wanted to say something, but hesitated. He looked at Fei Rin again and asked in a low voice, "What's the matter?" Back then, Zhu Wuchang and Gao Yunshin both broke through to level 1 martial master and were promoted to outer disciples. At the same time, they moved to Taiyang Peak. Wang Long only became an outer disciple later. Therefore, he did not know about the grudge between Fei Rin and the inner disciple, Zhu Wuchang. Facing Wang Long's question, Fei Rin didn't deny it and nodded. Back at Taiyang Peak, he and Zhu Wuchang had made a life-and-death bet. After this battle, only one of them could survive. Moreover, the date of this battle was getting closer and closer. Therefore, he had nothing to hide about this matter. Sigh, that guy's not to be trifled with. Wang Long sighed softly and said, Brother Fei, you haven't been in the Scorching Sun sect during this period of time, so there are some things that you don't know. Oh. Fei Rin raised his eyebrows and was slightly surprised. Listening to Wang Long's words, many things seemed to have happened during the time he was away from the Scorching Sun sect. Just as old Gao said, the inner disciple, Zhu Wuchang, has broken through to the half-step to martial spirit realm. Not only is he in the top 10 of the inner disciples, but he is also ranked 5th on the combat strength list. His strength has greatly increased. In addition, young Master Scorching Sun, Feng Buhui, has also successfully broken through the shackles of martial arts and stepped into the martial spirit realm. He has become the first martial spirit realm expert in the inner sect. Wang Long paused and spoke again. His words were full of emotion. After all, his talent and potential were limited. After coming to the Scorching Sun sect for nearly 2 years, he had finally broken through to the LV1 Martial Master realm and became an outer disciple. He could not be compared to these inner disciples. They were not from the same world. Young Master Scorching Sun, Feng Bue, hearing this, Fei Rin's face turned slightly cold. He had heard of the other party's reputation before. Not only was he the direct disciple of the current Scorching Sun sect's sect master, Feng Sanyin, but he was also the inner sect's #1 genius. For many years, he had dominated the combat strength list and was several times stronger than Zhu Wuchang. This person's strength shouldn't be weaker than Mo Chuandao. Thinking of this, Fei Rin rubbed his chin. Although the news of Feng Bue's breakthrough to the martial spirit realm had spread throughout the entire Scorching Sun sect, his enemy this time was Zhu Wuchang. Since Zhu Wuchang and Feng Buhui had minded their own business, Zhu Wuchang's breakthrough had no effect on Zhu Wuchang. Wang Long, young Master Liang, is the current sect master's disciple. It's normal for him to break through to the martial spirit realm. You, on the other hand, need to work hard in your cultivation. At the thought of this, Fei Rin gathered his thoughts and patted Wang Long's shoulder. Although Wang Long was one of his few friends, his strength and talent paled in comparison to Gao Yunshin and the others. Even among the outer disciples, Wang Long was at the bottom. Even the outer disciple in charge of guarding the mountain gate of the Scorching Sun sect could easily defeat Wang Long. Hey, why are you talking about this? How can I compare to you, an old Gao? Both of you are cultivation monsters. Now I'm worried that you won't be able to defeat Zhu Wuchang and will die for nothing. Facing Fei Rin's ridicule, Wang Long's face turned green and red. He seemed to be a little embarrassed. Then he scratched his head and advised, "Why don't we give in?" Although Fei Rin had stepped into martial master realm, there was still a gap between him and Zhu Wuchang, who was a half-step to the martial spirit realm. Therefore, Wang Long was not confident in this life-and-death battle and did not think highly of Fei Ren. Wang Long, why don't you help me do something useful instead of talking so much nonsense? Facing Wang Long's advice, Fei Ren only shook his head and smiled helplessly. After all, the other party did not know what had happened in the ancestral mausoleum. If Wang Long knew that he had fought against two martial spirit realm experts in the ancestral mausoleum and forced them to retreat, perhaps he would not think so. What is it? Hearing this, Wang Long's face turned serious. With Wang Long's current strength, if he wanted to ask for his help, it must be something big. I want to reforge this soul treasure in my hands and increase its power and tier. Do you have any information on a high-level weapon refiner? Fei Ren's left hand tightly grasped the green dragon halberd. In the next moment, he handed it over to the other party and slowly asked, A grade 5 spiritual treasure. If you want to reforge and increase its power and rank, you will need at least a grade 6 blacksmith. Looking at the azure dragon halberd in front of him, Wang Long pondered for a moment and said, That's right. Fei Ren did not refute and nodded. Brother Fei, as far as I know, although there are many blacksmiths in the Eastern Sun region, most of them are below grade 5. Moreover, there are only a handful of blacksmiths above grade 6. It's not easy to find them. At this point, Wang Long paused again and said slowly, However, there may be one person who can help you. Who? Fei Ren narrowed his eyes. Great Elder Feng Xianyan, Wang Long said again. Great Elder? Hearing this, Fei Ren was slightly surprised. He knew that there were many experts in the Scorching Sun sect. In addition to Feng Yun, who was the spiritual master of Zixu, and Feng Sangyan, who was known as the spiritual master of Taixien, there were many martial spirit realm experts in the sect. However, it was the first time he heard that Great Elder Feng Xianyan was a blacksmith above grade 6. Brother Fei, there's one more thing that I forgot to tell you. Although Great Elder is a blacksmith above grade 6, it won't be easy for you to ask him to refine a weapon. Over the years, there were only a handful of disciples in the Scorching Sun sect who could ask Great Elder to personally refine a weapon. Moreover, all of them paid a huge price. It said that even the contribution points cost tens of thousands. Seeing that Fei Ren was about to make a move, Wang Long spoke again, as if to let him mentally prepare himself. It doesn't matter. As long as you can reforge the green dragon halberd in my hand, these are trivial matters. In the face of Wang Long's cold water, Fei Ren shook his head and did not take it seriously. Currently, he had a total of 20,000 contribution points and millions of primordial stones, most of which were low-grade and mid-grade primordial stones. His financial resources were basically guaranteed, unless Great Elder Feng Xianyan did not want these primordial stones and contribution points, and instead offered some other conditions. Good brother, I'll treat you to a drink when we get back. Patting Wang Long's shoulder again, Fei Ren left the battlefield in the next moment and flew in the direction of the sect's Great Hall. Before going to Heavenly Rock Peak to meet Great Elder Feng Xianyan, he still had to go to the sect's Great Hall to change his identity token. After all, he had defeated Jiang Liang, the #1 disciple in the outer sect, and raised his ranking to 82nd on the combat strength list. Such strength was enough to be promoted to an inner sect disciple. Heavenly Rock Peak, full of spring. This was one of the 5 great peaks of the Scorching Sun sect, and also the personal residence of Great Elder Feng Xianyan. Usually, except for elder-level figures, no one was allowed to enter easily. Even the inner sect disciples were no exception, unless they were notified in advance. Disciples who violated the rules and entered Heavenly Rock Peak without permission would be severely punished by the sect's rules, and even be sentenced to death. Chapter 500. Not long after, Fei Ren arrived at the foot of the Heavenly Rock Peak. This is the residence of Great Elder Feng Xianyan. Just as he left the sect hall, his identity token was changed again. The back of the original fiery red token had an additional picture of a group of auspicious clouds. The symbol of the Scorching Sun sect was a cloud pattern of wind and fire. However, The new disciple and outer disciple's identity token only had one cloud pattern on it, while the inner disciple's identity token had two clouds engraved on it, one on the left and one on the right. In addition, after being promoted to inner disciple, Fei Rin's monthly salary had also greatly increased. He could receive 500 contribution points a month. Inner disciple Fei Rin requests an audience with Senior Great Elder. As the elemental energy poured into his throat, Fei Rin also spoke in a clear voice. His voice was supported by the elemental energy, and it spread throughout the mountain like rolling thunder. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the heavenly rock peak in front of him was completely silent, as if Feng Xinyan himself was not in the mansion. No one. Seeing this, Fei Rin's face turned ugly. There were only a few days left before the life and death duel between him and Zhu Wuchang. If he couldn't reforge the Azure Dragon Halberd before then and increase its grade and power, it would definitely affect his strength. On the other hand, if he could reforge the Azure Dragon Halberd, Fei Rin's strength would greatly increase. At that time, he would have a greater chance of killing Zhu Wuchang. "Kid, why are you looking for this old man?" After another period of deathly silence, just as Fei Rin was about to turn around and leave, an old voice slowly came from the top of the mountain. His tone was calm, and it seemed to be the owner of the heavenly rock peak, the current great elder of the Scorching Sun sect, Feng Xinyan. Disciple Fei Rin would like to ask Senior Great Elder to forge a weapon. Seeing Feng Xuanyan's reply, Fei Rin's face lit up as he cupped his hands once again. "Come in." The old voice sounded out again. In the next moment, Fei Rin felt his vision blur, accompanied by a wave of elemental energy fluctuations that spread outwards. A towering asphalt mountain road also appeared in front of him, as if it was the only path that led to the top of the heavenly rock peak. A mystic level-top illusion array. It seems that Wang Long didn't lie to me. In the next moment, Fei Rin also leaped up and ran towards the top of Heavenly Rock Peak. Artificers and array masters were essentially of the same origin, and the requirements for a martial artist's mental strength were not low. Therefore, Fei Rin wasn't too surprised by Feng Xuanyan's methods. After all, Feng Xinyan was a 6th grade weaponsmith and above. Setting up a simple, top-grade, profound, rank illusory formation was a piece of cake for him. Heavenly Rock Peak, in front of the mansion, a tall old man with long hair and a white beard, dressed in a gray robe, stood there quietly. The tall old man exuded an extraordinary aura and had the demeanor of an immortal. At this moment, he was looking at Fei Rin, who was not far away from him. He was the current great elder of the Scorching Sun sect, Feng Xinyan. "Little doll, you want to find this old man to refine a weapon?" In Feng Xuanyan's memory, it had been a long time since a Scorching Sun sect disciple had asked him to refine a weapon. As for the reason, it was very simple. They couldn't afford it. After all, it would cost at least tens of thousands of contribution points to ask him to refine a weapon, and there was no guarantee of success. Even the top 10 inner disciples might not be able to afford it. That's right. Cupping his hands, Fei Rin nodded. "Little doll, you should know that this old man doesn't easily refine a weapon. The price I have to pay is not small." Glancing at Fei Rin again, the corners of Feng Xuanyan's mouth curled up, and his tone was playful. After all, the other party's cultivation base was only at the 8th level of the Martial Master realm, and he had just been promoted to an inner disciple. It was likely that he didn't have much money on hand. It would be good if he had a few thousand contribution points. "Senior Great Elder, feel free to speak." Fei Rin was already mentally prepared for Feng Xuanyan's asking price. What a calm lad. Seeing Fei Rin's calm face, Feng Xinyan was also surprised. He immediately collected his thoughts and said, "Little doll, for 50,000 contribution points, this old man can help you refine a Tier 6 spirit treasure. The success rate is about 70%, and there's no compensation if you fail. What do you think? 50,000 contribution points?" Hearing this, Fei Rin frowned slightly. Currently, he only had 20,000 contribution points on hand, which was far from enough to meet the other party's asking price. Moreover, Other than vitality stones, he had already exchanged most of his demon cores, herbs, and other treasures for contribution points. It wouldn't be easy to gather 30,000 contribution points in a short period of time. Yes, 50,000 contribution points. As the great elder of the Scorching Sun sect, this old man treats everyone equally. Even if you're an inner disciple of the sect, this old man will not lower the price. Think about it yourself. Taking in Fei Ren's expression, Feng Xinyan chuckled and stroked his long beard. Clearly, he didn't intend to change his mind. Damn it, this old man is too black-hearted. Hearing this, black lines appeared on Fei Ren's face. He clenched his fists under his sleeves, but he didn't dare to say anything. A total of 50,000 contribution points, even if they were exchanged for mid-gray vitality stones, would be worth at least hundreds of thousands of them. However, in Feng Xuanyan's hands, he could only refine a Tier 6 spirit treasure. Moreover, he couldn't guarantee a 100% success rate. Fortunately, this young master still has a backup plan. Recollecting his thoughts, Fei Ren clenched his teeth in the next moment. He extended his hand and touched the spirit ring on his finger. Then he took out a huge grayish-brown egg and said, "Senior First Elder, I do not have 50,000 contribution points. However, I do have this." This is... Looking at the huge, grayish-brown egg in Fei Ren's hand, Feng Xuanyan's old face was stunned. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. Although the grayish-brown egg in front of him looked ordinary, like an ordinary magical beast's egg, it contained an extraordinary magical power aura. It was clearly a high-grade magical beast's egg, and it wasn't far from hatching. This is an iron-eating beast's egg. This disciple obtained it by chance in a treasured land. Senior Great Elder, with your eyesight and experience, I'm sure you know the value of this egg. It's no less than 50,000 contribution points, Fei Ren explained as he handed the iron-eating beast's egg to Feng Xinyan. He had obtained this iron-eating beast's egg from Shenlinhe in the ancestral mausoleum. It was worth a fortune. In Fei Ren's opinion, this iron-eating beast's egg alone was enough to move Feng Xinyan and make him refine a weapon. After all, a magical beast pet was of great help to a martial artist. It could even save a martial artist's life. As for an adult iron-eating beast, its magical fluctuations were at least at the middle level of the spiritual rank. Its strength was comparable to a human warrior at the 6th level of the martial master realm. If it was carefully nurtured, it could even advance to a higher level and even break through the earth rank. It really is an iron-eating beast's egg. Feng Xuanyan's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly put the iron-eating beast's egg into his spirit ring. A rare look of joy appeared on his old face. Although he was proficient in the art of refining and his mental power was at the 6th level of the profound martial realm, his origin power cultivation was only at the 1st level of the martial spirit realm. His strength was far inferior to that of Feng Yun, the purple void spiritual master, and Feng Tsangyan, the Taishan spiritual master. Therefore, if he could obtain an iron-eating beast's egg and cultivate a powerful magical beast pet, it would be great for Feng Xinyan. Chapter 501. Senior Great Elder, what do you think? When Fei Ren saw Feng Xuanyan's reaction, he cupped his hands together and smiled faintly as well. Just as he expected, Feng Xinyan could not resist the temptation of an iron-eating beast egg. After all, although 50,000 contribution points was not a small amount, it was not easy to exchange for a high-level magical beast egg. Even in the Scorching Sun sect's internal treasury, there were very few high-level magical beast eggs above the spirit level. Most of them were magical beast eggs below the mystic level. Kid, I can help you refine the weapon, but I forgot to tell you one more rule. Feng Xinyan took a deep breath and nodded. He seemed to have other conditions. What? Hearing this, Fei Ren was stunned. In order to get Feng Xinyan to refine the weapon, he did not hesitate to take out a precious iron-eating beast egg. He did not expect there to be other conditions. What the hell? Fei Ren was speechless. Although he looked calm on the surface, he secretly wanted to curse. Kid, don't be nervous. I won't charge you more, but you have to provide the materials yourself. This has been my rule for many years. Also, if you fail, I will not compensate you. If you don't have any objections, this old man can start refining now." Feng Xinyan seemed to have guessed Fei Ren's thoughts. He stroked his long beard and smiled. Refining weapons here would not only cost a lot of contribution points, but also required one to provide the materials themselves. Therefore, this was why very few Scorching Sun sect disciples could get him to refine weapons. Refining materials? No problem. Seeing that Feng Xinyan did not increase the price, Fei Ren sighed in relief and nodded. This time, in order to reforge the Azure Dragon Halberd, he had already prepared the materials. Feng Xuanyan's request was naturally not a problem. What kind of spiritual treasure do you want to refine? A defensive type, an offensive type, or a support type spiritual treasure? After a pause, Feng Xinyan asked again. Having immersed himself in the art of crafting for many years, his crafting experience could be said to be very rich. He had experience in crafting all kinds of spirit treasures. Unless he was crafting a high-grade spirit treasure, his success rate would generally be above 80%. Senior Grand Elder, I would like you to help me reforge a treasure. Fei Ren shook his head in response to Feng Xuanyan's question. Recast. Feng Xinyan was taken aback. To a weapon refiner, recasting a spirit treasure was much more difficult than creating a spirit treasure. It could be said that the difficulty was not low. Therefore, he was surprised by Fei Ren's request. Yes, this soul treasure is called the Green Dragon Halberd. It is a grade 5 soul treasure with extraordinary power. However, as my strength continued to increase, this soul treasure has gradually become weaker. Fei Ren nodded and retrieved the Green Dragon Halberd from his back. At the same time, he handed it over to Feng Xinyan and explained. Feng Xinyan narrowed his eyes and asked, "So you want me to help you reforge this soul treasure and raise its power and grade?" Fei Ren nodded his head once again. Now that his Yuan power cultivation had broken through to grade 8 martial master, the Green Dragon Halberd's power had become increasingly limited. Its destructive power was even less than half of the Dharma Fist. It could only be used as an ordinary weapon. Therefore, it was necessary to reforge the Green Dragon Halberd. After pondering for a moment, Feng Xinyan said, "Kid, what materials have you prepared? Let me take a look." Since he was going to reforge a soul treasure, the materials he chose naturally couldn't be too low grade. Otherwise, it would be wasted. Walala. A white light flashed from the spirit ring on his finger. In the next moment, Fei Ren took out a pile of dazzling materials. Among them were Big Dipper rock, star stone, and other rare minerals. These were all top-grade materials for crafting. Other than the star stone, which he obtained from the Scorching Sun sect treasury, the rest of the materials, including the Big Dipper rock, were obtained by Fei Ren from the Ancestral Mausoleum. Back then, the opportunities he obtained in the Ancestral Mausoleum were no less than Mo, Chuandao, and Indra. Big Dipper rock, star stone? Feng Xuanyan's beard trembled as he looked at the large pile of refining materials in front of him and said in surprise, "Good boy, you're quite rich. You even have a stockpile of such top-notch refining materials. As the great elder of the Scorching Sun sect, he could be said to be very knowledgeable." However, it was his first time seeing an intersect disciple as rich as Fei Ren. After all, both the Big Dipper rock and the star stone were rare materials for crafting. Among them, the Big Dipper rock was the best. For example, the palm-sized Big Dipper rock in Fei Ren's hand could be sold for a sky-high price of millions of low-grade primordial stones in the black market. Senior Great Elder, you flatter me. Please refine the weapon. In the face of Feng Xuanyan's teasing, Fei Ren didn't deny it. He only grinned. Hearing this, Feng Xinyan nodded and said, "Kid, forgive me for saying this, but with the materials you have, if you reforge the Green Dragon Halberd into a grade 6 soul treasure, it will be a waste. Senior Great Elder, what do you think?" After being stunned for a moment, Fei Ren said again. It seemed that Feng Xinyan had other ideas. This old man can help you reforge the green dragon halberd into a grade 7 soul treasure. However, I can't guarantee the success rate. It's less than 50%. Do you dare to give it a try? Feng Xinyan took a deep breath, and his face gradually turned solemn. Although he was a grade 6 craftsman, his crafting skills had greatly improved after years of secluded cultivation. Moreover, his mental power was close to the 7th level of the profound martial realm. He wasn't far from becoming a true grade 7 craftsman. Now, Feng Xinyan was only a small opportunity away from becoming a grade 7 craftsman, and that was to personally refine a genuine grade 7 soul treasure. In fact, long before Fei Run came to visit, Feng Xinyan had tried to refine a genuine grade 7 soul treasure. However, he failed in the end. He didn't refine a complete soul treasure. Most of the soul treasures he refined were useless and inferior. Therefore, Feng Xinyan didn't have much confidence in reforging the green dragon halberd into a grade 7 soul treasure. A conservative estimate was less than 50%. Grade 7 soul treasure, huh? Hearing this, Fei Ren's face turned cold. Even his breathing became a little hurried. If he could reforge the green dragon halberd into a grade 7 soul treasure, his strength would at least double. At that time, his chances of surviving the life and death gambit with Zhu Wuchang would also be higher. However, just as Feng Xinyan said, the risk of reforging the green dragon halberd into a grade 7 soul treasure was very high. The success rate was less than 50%. On the other hand, if he only reforged the green dragon halberd into a grade 6 soul treasure, although the success rate would be higher, it would inevitably be a waste of heaven's resources. It would be a waste of top crafting materials like the heavenly dipper rock and starstone. It wouldn't be able to unleash its true power and value. Should I agree or not? Thinking of this, Fei Ren fell into a dilemma. His face flickered and his hands couldn't help but clench. Chapter 502. Grade 6 Spirit Treasure and Grade 7 Spirit Treasure. Although there was only a difference of one word, the difference was enormous. The power of a grade 7 spirit treasure was far greater than several grade 6 spirit treasures. Moreover, it was usually priceless. In a martial artist's black market, if one wanted to buy a grade 7 spirit treasure, even if it was the weakest support type spirit treasure, one would have to spend at least 10 million low-grade primordial stones. Moreover, the green dragon halberd that Feng Xinyan was going to reforge for Fei Run was not a support-type spirit treasure. It was an offensive spirit treasure that could be used as a natal weapon. Therefore, the difficulty and value of refining it was not small. Moreover, if the refinement failed, not only would the green dragon halberd be easily damaged, but a large amount of refining materials would also be wasted. Fei Ren had spent a lot of effort to collect the Starstone and Big Dipper Rock. If it went down the drain, it would be a lie to say that he did not feel heartache. Damn it, let's do it. After a moment of silence, Fei Ren decided to give it a try despite the high risk of reforging the weapon. After all, wealth came from danger. If the green dragon halberd's power and grade were only at the level of a grade 6 spirit treasure, it would not satisfy his appetite at all. At the same time, it would also waste the value of the Big Dipper Rock and Starstone in his hands. Senior Grand Elder, please do it. Looking at Feng Xinyan again, Fei Ren's expression was resolute. Just as Feng Xinyan had said, although the success rate of this refinement was less than 50%, there was still a chance. Very good. Since you trust me so much, I'll give you an extra gift. Seeing Fei Ren nod, Feng Xinyan laughed out loud. Then, he waved his sleeve and took out a large piece of pure white crystal, he grinned and said, "What a coincidence, I happen to have a piece of Big Dipper Rock as well. You're lucky to reforge the weapon this time." The pure white crystal ore in his hand was extremely smooth, without a single flaw. It was a top-grade refining material, the Big Dipper Rock. Moreover, compared to the palm-sized Big Dipper Rock in Fei Ren's hand, the Big Dipper Rock in Feng Xuanyan's hand was obviously larger. It was half the size of a wash basin. "There's still a Big Dipper Rock." Fei Ren stared blankly at the Big Dipper rock in Feng Xuanyan's hand. He was slightly surprised, and it took him several breaths to regain his senses. After all, Feng Xuanyan was a grade 6 weapon craftsman and the great elder of the Scorching Sun sect. It wasn't strange for him to have some top-notch crafting materials in his possession. However, he didn't expect Feng Xuanyan to suddenly become so generous. Looks like this old man's refining level has also reached a bottleneck. If the recasting is successful this time, his refining level will be greatly improved, and he could be promoted to a true 7th grade weapon refiner. Suddenly thinking of something, Fei Ren's face turned pensive. The other party with a 6th tier weapon craftsman. If he could successfully reforge the Azure Dragon halberd this time, not only would he be able to hone his weapon crafting skills, he would also be able to help the other party break through his mental energy realm and become a true 7th tier weapon craftsman. In addition, Feng Xuanyan had also obtained an iron-eating beast egg from Fei Ren. Regardless of whether the Azure Dragon halberd's reforging was successful or not, he wouldn't have lost out. Therefore, that was why the other party would so generously contribute a piece of heavenly dipper rock. Swoosh! Swoosh! Holding the Azure Dragon halberd tightly in his right hand, Feng Xuanyan swung it up and down. Majestic origin power poured into the halberd and slashed out streaks of sharp halberd radiance, cutting the surrounding vegetation into pieces. What a good weapon! Although it's only a grade 5 spirit treasure, its destructive power isn't any weaker than some grade 6 spirit treasures. Feng Xuanyan was slightly surprised as he withdrew the Azure Dragon halberd. The quality of the Azure Dragon halberd in Fei Ren's hands was extraordinary. It wasn't any weaker than some of the grade 6 spirit treasures he usually refined. Senior Great Elder, please do it. Fei Ren cupped his hands and said again. All right, but other than the Heavenly Dipper rock and this star stone, I don't need any of the other crafting materials you gave me. Feng Xuanyan nodded and put the Azure Dragon halberd into his spirit ring. Senior Great Elder, why is that? Hearing this, Fei Ren was a little surprised. In order to guarantee the success rate of reforging the Azure Dragon halberd, other than the Heavenly Dipper rock and the star stone, he also prepared some other crafting materials in his spirit ring. Although they weren't as valuable as the other two, they weren't cheap either. However, these crafting materials were dissuaded by Feng Xuanyan before him. Little kid, it seems like you don't know anything about crafting. Feng Xuanyan was already expecting Fei Ren's surprise. He stroked his beard and smiled faintly. Senior, please enlighten me. Hearing this, Fei Ren's expression was a little awkward, and he cupped his hands again. Although his mental power had improved recently, reaching the 4th level of the profound martial realm, which was comparable to a grade 4 alchemist. However, as Feng Xuanyan had said, he didn't have the slightest knowledge about crafting and formations. He had only heard of them. Crafting is mainly divided into 2 steps, forging and refining. In essence, it's the same as refining medicine. Both require large amounts of main and auxiliary materials. During the forging process, the craftsman will usually use the power of the demon core to embed it into the unrefined spirit treasure to increase its power. Speaking up to this point, Feng Xuanyan deliberately paused, then slowly continued. Apart from this, there's another way to increase the power of spirit treasure. That is to inscribe spirit runes. The power of the spirit runes can be released by injecting yuan power into it. As for inscribing spirit inscriptions on spirit treasures, other than the high quality of the materials used to refine them, it also requires a high level of mental strength and level of the weapon refiner himself. Therefore, not every spirit treasure is inscribed with spirit inscriptions. There are almost no spirit treasures below grade 5. In other words, only some powerful high-grade spirit treasures will have spirit runes inscribed on them. I see. Hearing this, Fei Ren nodded deeply as if he was enlightened. Just as the other party had said, if one wanted to inscribe spirit runes on the green dragon halberd, other than rare materials like the Heavenly Dipper rock and the star stone, the rest of the materials were useless. Very good, I will start refining now. However, it may take a few days, and there is a risk of failure. Little kid, you have to be mentally prepared. On the other hand, If the recasting is successful, you can come to me directly to receive the spirit treasure." Once again stroking his long beard, Feng Xinyan spoke with a serious expression. "Everything depends on Senior." Nodding his head, Fei Run did not say anything else. It was obvious that he was mentally prepared. In the next moment, he turned around and hurriedly left Heavenly Rock Peak. Heavenly Rock Peak, in a remote, secret room. Feng Xinyan was sitting cross-legged. In the middle of the secret room, there was a green dragon halberd quietly placed. Around it were various refining materials scattered all over the place. Among them, the Heavenly Dipper Rock and the Star Stone were the most dazzling, shining with a resplendent silver light. If I can succeed this time, this old man can officially break through to the 7th grade weapon refiner. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Feng Xuanyan's old face was trembling slightly. His tone was solemn, and it was obvious that he attached great importance to the recasting of the spirit treasure this time. Chapter 503. Raise the Furnace. With a flick of his sleeve, Feng Xinyan summoned a black iron furnace from within. It seemed to be his tool for refining weapons. Boom! The black iron furnace landed heavily on the ground with a loud boom. Then, Feng Xinyan reached out with his right hand. Wisps of majestic yuan power swept out and immediately enveloped the black iron furnace and the azure dragon halberd. For Blacksmith, every time he forged a weapon, it would consume a lot of mental energy, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. Therefore, for the sake of forging the azure dragon halberd this time, Feng Xinyan went into seclusion and chose to forge it in a secret room. Boom! With wisps of yuan power spirit fire appearing in his palm, Feng Xinyan threw the azure dragon halberd into the black iron furnace. The rolling yuan power spirit fire immediately wrapped around the azure dragon halberd and began the first step of forging. The azure dragon halberd in Fei Ren's hands was a tier 5 spirit treasure. If he wanted to reforge it, it would not be too difficult. He only needed to remove the original power of the demon core of the azure dragon halberd, and, at the same time, fuse the Big Dipper Rock and the Star Stone into it. However, this required a blacksmith's mental energy and attainments in forging. Moreover, he couldn't afford to be distracted. Crack! Following the smelting of the Yuan Force spiritual fire, strands of green fragments gradually fell from the halberd's body like falling leaves. At the same time, the spiritual energy fluctuation on the azure dragon halberd decreased slightly, falling to the level of a tier 4 soul treasure. These were the remnants of the monster core power on the azure dragon halberd. Since it was a reforged spirit treasure, Feng Xinyan naturally wouldn't keep these low-level monster core power. For this reforging, he purposely chose a few monster cores of high spirit rank and above from his inventory to maximize the azure dragon halberd's power. Reforge! Feng Xinyan slammed his palm into the black iron furnace again. With waves of spirit fire rising, Feng Xinyan threw the Heavenly Dipper Rock into the furnace and began fusing it. This Heavenly Dipper Rock was given to him by Fei Ren. It was only the size of palm. As for the Heavenly Dipper Rock in his hand, he hadn't used it yet. Although he had practiced many times before, he still wasn't confident in reforging a grade 7 spirit treasure. Therefore, Feng Xinyan was very careful when choosing materials. After all, if the reforging failed, this precious Heavenly Dipper Rock would go to waste. Boom! A few minutes later, the originally calm black iron furnace throbbed, and in the next moment, it exploded, emitting billowing black smoke. In an instant, the entire secret chamber was filled with the pungent smell of burnt coal. Damn it! Feng Xuanyan's expression turned ugly when he saw this. It was obvious that the recasting had failed. It was still lacking by just a little bit. TCH, just a little bit more. Feng Xinyan sighed as he picked up the scattered pieces of Heavenly Dipper Rock. At the final juncture of the refinement process, his strained spiritual energy had been distracted for a moment. Otherwise, the recasting process would have been a success. Although he had failed the first time, he still had an even bigger Big Dipper Rock in his hands. Furthermore, the star stone that Fei Run had given him was still there. Therefore, Feng Xinyan still had a chance to make a move. Boom! After clearing the smithing dregs in the black iron furnace, Feng Xuanyan's palm once again emitted wisps of elemental energy pill fire. With the experience of the first failure, the following recasting process was also cautious. Whether it was the use of refining techniques or the fusion of materials, Feng Xinyan was completely focused, not daring to slack off in the slightest. After an unknown period of time, in the secret chamber, buzz! Suddenly, accompanied by a faint long hum from the black iron furnace, a dark starlight burst out from within. Then, it broke through the secret chamber and went straight up into the sky. The light was dazzling, as if a star had descended to Earth. In the sky, specks of stars flickered, and then the clouds floated as if they were lifelike, strange patterns. Under the illumination of the starlight, even the entire heavenly rock peak was filled with a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation. Ha ha ha! I've finally succeeded. In the face of this phenomenon, an old laugh suddenly came from within the secret chamber. In the next moment, a gray-robed figure scuttled out. At this moment, his face was covered in dust, and his long beard was covered in unknown waste. Even his robes were tattered, and he looked extremely miserable, like a wild boar that had just taken a bath in the mud. Grade 7 Spirit Treasure. Feng Xuanyan's face was filled with excitement. In his right palm, he tightly held a dark green dragon-headed halberd that was more than 4 feet long. At this moment, the dragon-headed halberd's entire body was emitting powerful spiritual energy fluctuations. One could vaguely see that the halberd's head was suffused with a dark, profound light, like a black hole star, causing one's heart to palpitate. After this long and boring refining process, he had finally successfully recast the Azure Dragon Halberd, advancing it to a grade 7 Spirit Treasure and greatly increasing its power. Right now, the new Azure Dragon Halberd was different from the past. It had fused the power of the Heavenly Dipper Rock and the Star Stone, and its destructive power had greatly increased. For this reason, Feng Xinyan had even specially given this spirit treasure a new name, the Azure Dragon Star Halberd. In addition, Feng Xinyan had also inscribed spirit patterns on the Azure Dragon Star Halberd. The spirit patterns on the Azure Dragon Star's halberd could not only double a martial artist's origin power, making the power of the Azure Dragon Star's halberd even greater, but could also explode with a strand of special star power, crushing the enemy. Its destructive power was extremely strong. According to Feng Xuanyan's estimation, although the Azure Dragon Star halberd was only a grade 7 spirit treasure, with the power of the spirit patterns, its power was not weaker than some grade 8 spirit treasures. I didn't expect it to cause such a big commotion. Looking up at the sky, Feng Xinyan saw that the phenomenon in the sky was gradually dissipating and the light of the stars was gradually dimming. Although the refining process this time was carried out in a secret room, the phenomenon that occurred after the spirit treasure was created was still beyond his expectations. Fortunately, the Heavenly Dipper Peak he was at was one of the 5 main peaks, and ordinary Scorching Sun sect disciples were not allowed to approach it. Moreover, the phenomenon caused by the spirit treasure's creation was fleeting, and most of the Scorching Sun sect disciples did not notice it. That little kid, got off easy. Retracting his gaze, Feng Xinyan put the Azure Dragon Star halberd back in his spirit ring and exhaled lightly. Then he took out a spirit recovery pill and consumed it. In order to recast the Azure Dragon Star halberd, not only did he spend several days, but also consumed a lot of his spiritual energy. However, the final result was good. After using 2 Heavenly Dipper rocks and a Star Stone, the Azure Dragon Star halberd was finally recast successfully. Swoosh! Feng Xuanyan's figure flashed, and in the next moment, he also disappeared. This time, after successfully recasting the Azure Dragon Star halberd, he himself also gained a lot of experience and understanding. So he needed to spend some time digesting these experiences and understanding and improve his refining skills. At the same time, Gu Yefeng, This was the residence of the Scorching Sun sect's inner disciples and ordinary elders. The scenery here was beautiful, and the spirit qi was abundant, which made it very suitable for cultivation. Just when Feng Xinyan had successfully reforged the Azure Dragon Halberd, causing it to advance into a grade 7 spirit treasure and produce a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth, Fei Ren was nervously cultivating in his cave abode, completely unaware of the happenings in the outside world. Chapter 504. Phew. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Fei Ren exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In the next moment, his body shook, and his origin power aura grew stronger. Just now, after he had adjusted his qi for more than 10 cycles, the origin power in his dantian had increased by quite a bit, and he was one step closer to the next breakthrough. Although Fei Ren's origin power cultivation was only at level 8 martial master, which was not as good as Zhu Wucheng, who was ranked 5th in the intersect, and young master Liang, Feng Buhui. However, his cultivation method was a rank 9 cultivation method. Even without the aid of primordial stones, his cultivation speed would not be much slower. With the miraculous effect of the Dharma 1000 transformation technique, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed them. Therefore, Fei Ren was not in a hurry to break through his cultivation. Now, he was more concerned about the cultivation of martial arts. If he could master a few more powerful martial arts, it would be of great help to his overall strength. The sword and saber duel technique was created by Azir, a martial king. I wonder how powerful it is. Taking out an ancient secret manual from his spiritual ring, Fei Ren was deep in thought. He had obtained this martial art from the ancestral tomb. In order to obtain this sword and saber duel technique, he had not only fought with the Paluo tribe's chief, Indra Luo, but also fought with the Celestial Arcanum sect's disciple, Imo Chuandao of the Northern Continent. In addition, the sword and saber duel technique was a true rank 8 martial art. Its rank was 1 level higher than the Dharma fist that he had created. In addition to the sword and saber duel technique, Fei Ren had another martial art in his hands. It was the broken feather arrow formation that he had obtained from the Bone Sect's elder, Wang Jie. However, the broken feather arrow formation was only a rank 6 martial art, and its power was still weak. He had temporarily put it aside and was not in a hurry to cultivate it. After half an hour, Fei Ren had more or less memorized the cultivation method of the sword and saber duel technique. I see. Fei Ren was deep in thought. According to the cultivation records of the sword and saber duel technique, the essence of this martial art was the combination of the sword and saber. The left hand was the saber, and the right hand was the sword. The saber and sword merged into one, greatly increasing the power. Although he did not use swords and sabers as his weapons, the essence of the sword and saber duel arts was to combine the two weapons together to unleash a greater power. Fei Ren had understood this point long since. Why don't I create my own technique of my own? Fei Ren's heart trembled. In the next moment, he leaped out of the cave and arrived outside. His left hand was a fist, and his right hand was a halberd. As strands of elemental energy surged, Fei Ren's hands started to glow with a scarlet golden light. His left hand was filled with fist energy, while the elemental energy in his right hand condensed into a sharp elemental energy halberd. At present, although the Azure Dragon halberd was not in his hands, he could still use Yuan power to form various weapons. However, these weapons formed from Yuan power were slightly weaker than spirit treasures. Boom! As chi of the saber continued to pour out, Fei Ren's aura reached its peak. Kill! With a roar, Fei Ren's wrist shook slightly. In the next moment, his fist and halberd attacked together. They intertwined and fused together, turning into an illusory image of a green dragon and a golden Buddha. The illusory image was mixed with yuanly fluctuations that made people's hearts palpitate. Immediately, the illusory image of a green dragon and a golden Buddha rushed towards a huge rock not far away. Boom! Rumble! In an instant, the huge rock collapsed and shattered into pieces. It could not withstand the impact of the azure dragon and golden Buddha and turned into dust. Then, the remaining power of the azure dragon and golden Buddha did not diminish. It attacked the dense forest at the side, destroying everything in its path. Half of the forest was razed to the ground, creating a mess. Such power. After withdrawing his hand, Fei Run heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, his face was filled with shock and excitement. He had comprehended this move by cultivating the sword and saber arts. It was his first time using it, and he did not expect it to be so powerful. Moreover, Fei Ren did not have a spirit treasure. He had only imitated the appearance of the azure dragon halberd and formed a weapon. He had not used his full strength. If this move could be supported by the azure dragon halberd's power, even if the azure dragon halberd had not been reforged and was only a Tier 5 spirit treasure, its power would not be weaker than any Tier 8 martial arts. This was the essence of the sword and saber arts. In that case, why don't I call this move the Azure Dragon Golden Buddha attack? Fei Ren calmed himself down and said to himself, the Green Dragon Golden Buddha strike was extremely powerful. If Feng Xianyan could successfully reforge the Green Dragon Halberd, coupled with the Green Dragon Halberd's power, one could only imagine how much more powerful the Green Dragon Golden Buddha strike would become. When the time came for a life-and-death battle, no matter how many trump cards Zhu Wuchang had, Fei Run would not be afraid. With his current strength, he was no weaker than any martial spirit realm expert. He could even fight a level 2 martial spirit realm expert. Continue. After comprehending the new martial art, Azure Dragon Golden Buddha attack, with the help of the sword and saber arts, Fei Ren did not become complacent. Instead, he continued to practice this martial art. Outside the cave, a golden light suddenly appeared. The fist energy and halberd shadows overlapped, creating a great momentum. After an unknown period of time, Fei Ren had finally cultivated the Azure Dragon Golden Buddha attack to the initial stage. He could be considered to have grasped the initial stage of this martial art. However, this move consumed a lot of yuan power. It was no less than using the Dharma Golden Buddha body. Therefore, he planned to use the Azure Dragon Golden Buddha attack as a trump card. He would not use it casually. After finishing his cultivation, Fei Ren did not spend too much time on the other quasi-tier 6 martial art, crippling feather arrow array. He only gave it a quick glance and then shook his head. He threw this martial art into the spirit ring's space to collect dust. The reason was simple. Firstly, the power of this martial art was weaker than the Dharma fist. Secondly, after cultivating the sword and saber arts this time, he had already created an even more powerful Azure Dragon Golden Buddha attack. It was enough to be used as a killing move. There was no need to avoid it and cultivate the crippling feather arrow array, a quasi-tier 6 martial art. Another day passed. It had already been 5 or 6 days since he asked Feng Xianyan to reforge the Azure Dragon Halberd. For this reason, Fei Ren also planned to leave for Heavenly Rock Peak again. I wonder if that old man will succeed. If the recasting fails, then my Azure Dragon Halberd, Heavenly Dipper Rock, and Starstone will all be in vain. After leaving Gu Yufeng's cave, Fei Ren felt a little nervous and clenched his fists tightly. As a rogue cultivator, he knew very well that these refining materials were not easy to come by. They were not cabbages on the streets. Heavenly Rock Peak, in front of a stone pavilion, Senior Grand Elder. Looking at the calm Feng Xianyan in front of him, Fei Ren immediately cupped his hands. According to the previous agreement, he planned to come and take the spirit treasure this time, provided that the other party did not fail. Kid, you're here. Glancing at Fei Ren, Feng Xianyan stroked his long beard. He did not reveal anything and was somewhat unfathomable. Cough, cough, Senior, this time's recasting of the spirit treasure. Seeing this, Fei Ren coughed dryly a few times and probed. Looking at the other party's appearance, even he could not guess whether the recasting of the spirit treasure this time was a success or a failure. Chapter 505. With this old man taking action, how can there be a reason for failure? Faced with Fei Ren's probing, Feng Xinyan chuckled with a smug look on his aged face. Success. Seeing the other party's reaction, Fei Ren's heart skipped a beat and his face lit up with joy. At this point, even an idiot would know that the Azure Dragon Halberd's reforging was a success. Senior Grand Elder is indeed an expert of the Scorching Sun sect. Truly awesome. In this disciple's humble opinion, I'm afraid that no one in the entire Eastern Sun region can compare to Senior Grand Elder. Giving Feng Xinyan a thumbs up, Fei Ren grinned and flattered without holding back. After all, in order to invite the other party to refine the weapon, he didn't hesitate to give away a precious iron-eating beast's egg and spend a lot of high-grade materials. If this failed, Fei Ren would cry all the way to his grandma's house. You little kid, you're quite good with words. All right, this is your spirit treasure. This old man has finished it for you. Looking at Fei Ren again, Feng Xinyan took out a sharp dragon-headed halberd from his spirit ring. The dragon-headed halberd was filled with spirit chi, and the halberd's head glowed with a dark light like a black hole. It was the reforged Azure Dragon Halberd of Stars. Although this spirit treasure is only grade 7, there's a spirit pattern engraved on it that can double a martial artist's origin power. At the same time, it can explode with a strand of unique star power. It's very powerful. In other words, this spirit treasure's power and destructive power is no less than an ordinary grade 8 spirit treasure. In order to complete it, this old man spent a lot of effort. Consider yourself lucky, kid. Feng Xinyan said with a sigh. What a treasure. Fei Ren raised his hand to receive the Azure Dragon Halberd of Stars. His eyes were shining with excitement. Even if Feng Xinyan didn't explain, he could still sense that the Azure Dragon Star Halberd in front of him was brimming with extremely majestic spiritual energy fluctuations. Moreover, its sharpness was completely exposed, and its might was boundless. Feng Xinyan wasn't deliberately boasting. Feng Xinyan nodded and said, This halberd has fused the power of star stones and heavenly dipper rocks. Regardless of whether it's power or hardness, it's top-notch. Ordinary Yuan power attacks will find it difficult to destroy it. For this reason, this old man has even given it a new name, the Azure Dragon Star Halberd. Moreover, you only need to pour a strand of origin energy into the Azure Dragon Star Halberd, and you'll be able to use the power of the spirit inscriptions to increase the halberd's power and destructive power. At the same time, you'll be able to use a strand of your own star energy. The power of stars. As soon as he finished speaking, Fei Ren's expression suddenly turned serious. Although he did not know anything about weapon refinement, just as the other party had said, not all spirit treasures were imprinted with spirit inscriptions. Not only was this Azure Dragon Star Halberd a 7th grade spirit treasure, but it was also engraved with spirit inscriptions. It could release a strand of star energy, greatly increasing its power. It was enough to see that in order to reforge this Azure Dragon Star Halberd, Feng Xinyan had spent quite a bit of effort, and it was not something that could be done in a single day. All right, I've already given you the item. In order to reforge this thing, this old man has spent quite a bit of mental energy. I still have to go into seclusion for a period of time, so I won't keep you any longer. Once again stroking his long beard, Feng Xuanyan's figure also turned into a wisp of green smoke and left the stone pavilion. Senior Grand Elder, take care. Seeing this, Fei Ren once again cupped his hands in thanks. In the next moment, he placed the Azure Dragon Star Halberd in his hand behind his back and also left the heavenly rock peak. Now that he had obtained the grade 7 spirit treasure, the Azure Dragon Star Halberd, the rare iron-eating beast egg that he had given away back then had not been wasted. After Gu Yefeng returned to his mansion, Fei Ren did not go into seclusion. Instead, he began to familiarize himself with the new spirit treasure in his hands, the Azure Dragon Star Halberd. At the same time, he cultivated the Azure Dragon Golden Buddha Kill, a self-created martial art. Right now, there was still a day or two before the life and death duel. In a short period of time, it was unlikely that his elemental energy cultivation would break through, so it was better to hone his martial arts. Unknowingly, A day had passed. Boom! In the dense forest, an azure dragon golden Buddha image swept through the sky and then swept in all directions. Wherever it went, it was a mess. Countless trees were turned into dust, and the rolling elemental energy lingered in the air, causing one's heart to palpitate. The Azure Dragon Golden Buddha kill has been completely consolidated at the small success stage, and I have also grasped the power of the spirit inscriptions on the Azure Dragon Star Halberd. It's time to settle the score with that grandson, Zhu Wuchang. In the next moment, his figure slowly landed on the ground. Fei Ren's expression was calm, and at the same time, his right hand tightly gripped the Azure Dragon Star Halberd, his killing intent spreading. Today was the day of the life and death duel that he had agreed to with Zhu Wuchang. 3 months ago, the enmity of that palm strike at Taiyang Peak, as well as the other party's repeated provocations and attempts to kill him, Fei Ren had not forgotten these. At the same time, in a hall on Dubhe Peak, junior brother Feng Yun, that kid called Fei Ren has great potential. How did you discover such a good seedling? In the middle of the hall, a middle-aged man in a white robe stood with his hands behind his back. He had a dignified look on his face. He was the Scorching Sun Sect Master, also known as the Taishian Spiritual Master, Feng Sangyan. Senior brother, this is just my luck. Facing Feng Sangyan's question, Feng Yun stroked his long beard and said plainly. Although he was a little older than Feng Sangyan, the Scorching Sun Sect had always respected the strong. Feng Sangyan was not only powerful, his cultivation had already reached LV4 Martial Spirit Realm, but he was also the current sect master of the Scorching Sun Sect. Therefore, he had to call him senior. Luck? Hearing this, Feng Sangyan was a little surprised. He then smiled faintly and said, if what junior brother said is true, then it is the Scorching Sun Sect's fortune. With this kid's potential, although he is not as good as Feng Buhui, he is not weaker than Xiao Xian and Zhu Wuchang of the Intersect. If he does not die prematurely, stepping into the martial spirit realm is a certainty. Feng Buhui, young master Scorching Sun, the #1 genius of the Intersect. At the same time, he was also Feng Sangyan's direct disciple. Although Fei Ren had great potential, in Feng Sangyan's view, he was still a little weaker than Feng Buhui. As for Xiao Xian and Zhu Wuchang, they were both Intersect top 10 geniuses. Among them, Zhu Wuchang was ranked 5th and Xiao Xian was ranked 2nd. He was an expert in spear techniques that were as sharp as the wind. His strength was incomparably powerful, second only to young Master Scorching Sun, Feng Buhui. Senior brother, today is the day of the life and death duel between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang. At that time, you will know how much potential this kid has. Facing Feng Sangyan's speculation, Feng Yun did not refute. He only smiled faintly and said in a meaningful tone, "Oh, today is a little interesting." Hearing this, Feng Sangyan narrowed his eyes. He had long heard of the conflict between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang. However, as the sect master of the Scorching Sun Sect and a level 4 martial spirit realm expert, he had never interfered in the fights between disciples. He would only watch from the sidelines. Fei Ren kid, if you can't even deal with Zhu Wuchang, then don't come back to see this old man. Retracting his expression, Feng Yun raised his eyes and looked outside the hall as he thought to himself. Scorching Sun Sect, on top of a towering mountain peak, this was the location of the duel arena. At this moment, the arena was already packed with people. There was a dense mass of people everywhere, and the atmosphere was fervent. Even the air was filled with the dense smell of gunpowder. Everyone raised their heads in anticipation as if they were waiting for the main character to make an appearance. Chapter 506. I wonder who will win this battle. I heard that Zhu Wuchang has entered the half-step to martial spirit realm, and his strength has increased greatly. I don't think Fei Ren is a match for him. A tall martial artist in the crowd speculated. However, before he could finish his sentence, a rebuttal came from the side. That may not be the case. Even the number one outer sect disciple, Jiang Liang, was defeated by Fei Rin. Furthermore, from what I know, although Fei Rin's cultivation is only at the 8th level of the martial master realm, his strength is not weaker than an ordinary half-step into the martial spirit realm. The person who spoke was a young man in a tight suit. His cultivation was neither high nor low and had already reached the 8th level of the martial master realm. His body was surrounded by Yuan Qi to protect his body, and he had an elegant temperament. He was also an inner disciple, Jin Shuangbao. Around him, several different gazes looked at the young man in a tight suit, and in the next moment, a surprised voice came out. His name was Jin Shuangbao, and he was also an inner disciple of the Scorching Sun sect. He was ranked 21st on the combat power ranking and was not weak. In addition, Jin Shuangbao was also a tycoon. He was rich and had been in the top 10 of the contribution ranking for many years. He had at least 200,000 contribution points on hand and was a well-known figure in the Scorching Sun sect. Even Jin Shuangbao is here. Looks like there will be a good show to watch. At the side, several outer disciples looked at each other and sighed. After a while, accompanied by a gust of wind, Fei Rin had finally arrived at the battlefield. That guy hasn't shown up yet. Looking around, Fei Rin's face was calm. At this time, a large crowd had gathered around the battlefield. There were black figures everywhere, including inner and outer disciples. He did not see Zhu Wuchang's shadow, and it seemed that he had not arrived yet. Fei Rin is here. A low cry came from the crowd, and in the next moment, the atmosphere of the battlefield was high and gradually boiling. For a moment, countless eyes looked at Fei Rin on the stage. They had different expressions, and some of them were filled with envy. After all, Fei Rin had previously defeated Jiang Liang, who had always been the number one in the outer sect. He had stolen the limelight, and his name had spread throughout the entire Scorching Sun sect. Even some of the inner sect disciples knew about Fei Rin's deeds. Chua! Suddenly, right when Fei Rin had just made an appearance, a black-robed figure tore through the sky from nearby, and it was like a black crow that descended onto the battle arena as well. The black-robed figure was surrounded by an ominous aura. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. His handsome face was as pale as a corpse. His Yuan power had reached the half-step martial spirit realm. He was extremely powerful. He was the inner sect genius, Zhu Wuchang. Today you must die. Zhu Wuchang raised his head to look at Fei Rin, who was not far away, and spoke in a cold and emotionless tone. For the sake of this day, he had also devoted himself to cultivation without slacking off at all. Back then at Taiyang Peak, he did not kill Fei Rin with a single palm strike. Other than the latter's strong physique, it was also because of the Scorching Sun sect's rules. There was a rule in the Scorching Sun sect that forbade the killing of fellow disciples. However, this was a life-and-death duel and was not bound by the Scorching Sun sect's rules. Therefore, Zhu Wuchang's killing intent was even more intense. He did not hold back at all. If he could not obtain something, he would destroy it. Back then, when Fei Rin had repeatedly rejected his recruitment and humiliated Ma Kuai and the others, Zhu Wuchang had already wanted to kill Fei Rin. Oh, I'm afraid you don't have the strength to do so. Fei Rin also looked at Zhu Wuchang on the other side of the battle arena. The corner of his mouth curled up. Zhu Wuchang wanted to kill him, and so did he. Prepare to die. Zhu Wuchang snorted coldly. He did not intend to waste any more words with Fei Rin. In the next moment, Zhu Wuchang circulated his Yuan power and raised his hand to slap at his opponent's head. Boom! Billowing Yuan power swept out like an unstoppable mountain, bringing about a heavy sense of oppression. As a half-step to martial spirit realm expert, although Zhu Wuchang's palm seemed ordinary and did not use any martial arts, its power was enough to kill a level 10 martial master. If it hit Fei Rin's head, his head would definitely be smashed and he would die on the spot. Scram! Faced with Zhu Wuchang's violent attack, Fei Rin raised his eyebrows in anger. He also shouted loudly and released a powerful Yuan power fluctuation around his body. He punched out in the air and met his opponent's attack head-on. Bang! Boom! In the blink of an eye, A loud sound like an ancient bell being struck rang out. As the fist and palm collided, two powerful yuan energy shockwaves swept out, causing the surrounding spectators to involuntarily take a few steps back, their faces filled with shock. Although both sides were only inner sect disciples, the intensity of this battle was not inferior to that of some elder-level battles. The battle had begun. Below the stage, when Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang exchanged blows, the spectators cheered and the atmosphere reached a climax. Vaguely, some outer sect deacons and even ordinary inner sect elders could be seen among the spectators. Obviously, the battle between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang had attracted a lot of attention in the Scorching Sun sect and had shocked many people. "Cousin, who do you think will win this battle?" At the edge of the crowd, a fat young man in embroidered clothes scratched his head and looked at the two people fighting fiercely on the stage. His eyes were full of anxiety as he looked at Wang Long. The young man in embroidered clothes was Wang Long's distant cousin, Wang Dashu. Although he had successfully broken through to level 1 martial master and became an outer sect disciple, Wang Dashu's strength was still lacking. He was only a half step to martial master and was still one step away from becoming an outer sect disciple. Even Zhang Liang wasn't a match for Brother Fei. This battle shouldn't be a problem for you. Also, Gao Yunxin has always been a good judge of character. Wang Long shook his head in response to Wang Dashu's worries. "Cousin, although that is the case, Zhu Wuchang is still an inner sect genius. Not only has his origin power reached the half-step to martial spirit realm, but he's also ranked 5th on the combat power ranking." Wang Dashu wanted to say something, but he hesitated and said weakly, "Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Just watch." Wang Long's face darkened, as if he felt that Wang Dashu was a little long-winded. He immediately hit Wang Dashu's head and shut him up at the same time. On the stage, boom! A majestic shockwave spread out. In the next moment, Fei Ren's figure quickly retreated and slowly landed on the side. His aura was still the same. Shockingly, this clash did not injure him in the slightest. On the other hand, Zhu Wuchang also retreated and was not affected by the origin power impact. However, his face was gloomy, like a pool of stagnant water. This bastard's strength has increased so quickly. Back at the Grand Sun Peak, he had been able to heavily injure Fei Ren with a single palm strike, causing Fei Ren to vomit blood and retreat violently. However, after a mere 2 months, the current Fei Ren was able to receive his palm strike head-on without being injured in the slightest. Evidently, his strength had increased by several times. "Looks like I have to use my real strength." A cruel and mocking smile appeared on Zhu Wuchang's face. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and bit his right thumb, causing blood to splatter. Crack, crack, crack. As the blood dripped down, his eyes became incomparably red. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body. At the same time, his aura changed greatly and more than doubled. At this moment, Zhu Wuchang was like a wild beast that was hibernating, terrifying everyone. Blood of the berserk dragon. In the crowd, the inner sect disciple Jin Shuangbao's expression changed slightly as he spoke in a shocked tone. This kid actually forced Zhu Wuchang to use his bloodline power. Unbelievable. As an inner sect disciple, he naturally knew that Zhu Wuchang was not weak and had a trace of bloodline power in his body. It was known as the Berserk Dragon bloodline. Chapter 507. What a terrifying aura. He's no weaker than a true LV1 martial spirit realm expert. Below the stage, Wang Long's expression changed as he sensed the surge in Zhu Wuchang's aura. Fear filled his heart. Zhu Wuchang was an inner sect genius, ranked 5th on the combat strength list. It was not strange for him to have such means. However, in his opinion, Fei Ren, who is only at LV8 martial master realm, would be under a lot of pressure when facing Zhu Wuchang, who had used his bloodline power. Bloodline power? At this moment, not only Jin Shuangbao and Wang Long, But Fei Ren also noticed the changes in Zhu Wuchang's body. Zhu Wuchang's aura had more than doubled, and his eyes were filled with endless killing intent. He was like a ferocious beast that had walked out of a primitive forest. He was beyond the scope of ordinary humans. It was the bloodline power that had played a role. In the Xianxing continent, most of the high-level demonic beasts had a trace of bloodline power. It was innate, but human warriors could also master bloodline power. However, it was not easy for human warriors to master bloodline power. Unless they were gifted and cultivated to a certain level, they could only take a huge risk by transplanting the demonic beast bloodline. If the transplanting of the demonic beast bloodline failed, the best outcome would be a lifetime of backlash from the bloodline power. The worst outcome would be a sudden death. Zhu Wuchang was one of the few warriors who had successfully transplanted the demonic beast bloodline. He had planted a strand of the demonic beast blood essence in his body, which allowed him to use the demonic beast bloodline power and increase his strength and speed by several times. However, the after effects of the demonic beast bloodline were very obvious. Once it was used, the warrior's spiritual sense would be affected by the demonic beast bloodline and become very crazy and cruel. He would lose most of his rationality and become like a ferocious beast. Fei Ren, you can't escape today. After releasing the Berserk Dragon bloodline, Zhu Wuchang's eyes were blood red. In the next moment, his body shot out again, immediately colliding with Fei Ren opposite him. He was like an unstoppable wild beast, stirring up a whistling wind. Dharma Golden Buddha Body. Facing Zhu Wuchang, Fei Ren did not dare to be careless and immediately released the Dharma Golden Buddha Body. Boom! Accompanied by a burst of crimson golden light, a huge golden Buddha phantom appeared. The eyes of the golden Buddha phantom were blooming with divine light, as if the real Bodhidharma golden Buddha had descended to the world. Its aura was no weaker than Zhu Wuchang's. Break! Fei Ren punched out once again. The Yuan Qi in his dantian was like an endless ocean. Then, it transformed into countless streaks of golden light that shot towards Zhu Wuchang. Bang! Countless golden bolts struck Zhu Wuchang's body, causing sparks to fly. A moment later, they disappeared. Although the golden bolts could not do anything to Zhu Wuchang, they did manage to stop Zhu Wuchang's offensive for a moment. What kind of martial arts is this? Stomping heavily on the ground, Zhu Wuchang's face was also slightly surprised, his blood-red eyes revealing a trace of bewilderment. Although the bloodline of the Berserk Dragon would affect his mind, he had not completely lost his ability to judge. He was also aware of the extraordinariness of the golden Buddha behind Fei Ren. Moreover, after using the Bodhidharma golden Buddha body, Fei Ren's Yuan Qi aura was no weaker than his. Although you have a trace of bloodline power, this mottled and impure trash bloodline alone cannot kill me. Reaching his right hand behind his back, a dark green light flashed. Fei Ren quickly pulled out the Azure Dragon Star halberd and held it tightly in his hand. Buzz! Following the appearance of the Azure Dragon Star halberd, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation also appeared spontaneously. The halberd's head glowed with dark light, and at the same time, it emitted a faint trembling sound, as if announcing the extraordinary power of this halberd. Grade 7 Spirit Treasure. Seeing the Azure Dragon Star halberd in Fei Ren's hand, Zhu Wuchang's face turned cold. The weapon in Zhu Wuchang's hand was a genuine Grade 7 Spirit Treasure. Its power was incomparably powerful, enough to resist his bloodline power. Kill! With the Azure Dragon Star halberd in hand, Fei Ren also launched a counterattack. He flew out with the halberd, and, at the same time, stabbed at Zhu Wuchang's vital points. Boom! In an instant, as Yuan power swept out, the spiritual runes on the Azure Dragon Star halberd completely erupted, and its power doubled in an instant. It was as if it was going to pierce through the stars. Insignificant skill. Facing Fei Ren's attack, Zhu Wuchang also roared at this time. The Yuan power around his body increased again, and then he took out an incomparably sharp saber from his spirit ring. The saber emitted a bloody light, and at the same time, it was placed horizontally in front of him, intending to block this stab. Clang! Rumble! In a flash, the halberd and saber also collided head-on, producing an ear-piercing sound of silver and iron colliding, and sparks flew in all directions. Rumble! In the next moment, another powerful shockwave spread outwards. Even the bluestone floor beneath their feet began to shatter, forming spiderwebs as if it could not withstand the impact of this power. Swoosh! As the aftershock dissipated, Zhu Wuchang and Fei Ren's figures retreated, and at the same time, a trace of blood splattered across the sky. At this time, Zhu Wuchang's face was as gloomy as stagnant water. The veins on his forehead were exposed, and at the same time, a trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Although he blocked Fei Ren's full power stab, he still suffered some light injuries. Moreover, if he didn't use his natal spiritual treasure in time, his injuries would definitely be several times more serious than now. On the other side, 6th grade spiritual treasure, it seems that this guy's trump card is not only the bloodline power. Fei Ren also landed on the ground, and his face was solemn. He was very clear that the saber in his opponent's hand was of high quality. Although it was not as good as his Azure Dragon Star halberd, it was not weaker than a 6th grade spiritual treasure. Otherwise, with just the bloodline power, Zhu Wuchang would never be able to block his full power stab, and only suffered a slight injury, not to mention that he had used the power of the spiritual runes in that stab. Damn you! I'll tear you to pieces and burn your bones to ashes. Zhu Wuchang's face gradually twisted, and he became incomparably crazy. Facing Fei Ren, who had endless trump cards, Zhu Wuchang was completely enraged at this time, and his killing intent was radiating. In addition, under the stimulation of the Berserk Dragon bloodline, he was unable to restrain his anger and lost his last trace of rationality. Baleful Heaven's Saber. A beast-like roar erupted from Zhu Wuchang's throat. In the next moment, Zhu Wuchang wielded his blade with both hands. At the same time, his body soared into the sky as an extremely frightening blade aura spread out, instantly enveloping the entire battlefield. Under the pressure of this terrifying saber aura, some of the weaker outer sect disciples even vomited blood and fainted on the spot, as if they had been struck by lightning. This is the power of Taoist law. Outside the arena, Jiang Liang's face also changed, and a sense of horror emerged in an instant. The power of Taoist law was difficult for ordinary martial artists to comprehend, and its power was far greater than the power of concept. To a certain extent, it was the sublimation and transformation of the power of concept. For martial artists, even if they only comprehended a trace of Taoist law's embryonic form, they could easily fight and even kill strong enemies. Obviously, Zhu Wuchang had comprehended Taoist law's power, the Saber Taoist law. However, Zhu Wuchang's comprehension of the Saber Taoist law was not adept, and had only reached the embryonic form. However, the embryonic form of the Saber Taoist law's power was far greater than the saber intent of the complete concept. Saber Taoist law? Then let's see if your Saber Taoist law is more powerful, or if my Green Dragon Golden Buddha attack is stronger. Below the ground, facing the imposing Zhu Wuchang in the sky, who was like a shocking heavenly saber, Fei Ren also took a deep breath, and a trace of determination appeared on his handsome face. Today's death battle was just the right time to test the results of his many days of bitter cultivation. Boom! Golden light flashed, and Yuan power surged, and the halberd swept across the sky. At this moment, Fei Ren also circulated the Dharma golden Buddha body and Yuan power around him to the limit. At the same time, he held the green dragon star halberd tightly in his right hand, and dots of dark light flickered. He was like a Dharma golden Buddha standing on the arena. Chapter 508. Green Dragon Golden Buddha Kill. With a low shout, Fei Ren brandished the Azure Dragon Star halberd in the next moment. At the same time, his left hand transformed into a fist and blasted out. In an instant, Yuan power swept out and wreaked havoc. Boom! Rumble! The fist energy raged, and the golden Buddha appeared, one on the left and one on the right. In the next moment, the two majestic forces turned into a huge green dragon golden Buddha shadow. It was like a Buddha riding on a dragon's aura. It attacked Zhu Wuchang in the sky. Its power seemed to shake the world and change the color of the clouds. What kind of martial art is this? At this time, facing Fei Ren's strongest attack, some of the Scorching Sun sect disciples who were watching the battle froze in place. After all, the power of this green dragon golden Buddha shadow was too terrifying. Not only was it not weaker than Zhu Wuchang in the sky, but it was also slightly stronger. Even if they were watching from afar, they would be shocked by this powerful aura and unable to move half a step. Grade 8 martial art. Not far away, seeing this scene, a black-robed figure was also shocked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This black-robed figure had shoulder-length hair and wore a simple bronze mask on the left side of his face. It was the number 1 outer disciple who lost to Fei Ren, Jiang Liang. Jiang Liang did not miss the life and death battle between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang, so he came to watch. The gap between him and me is so big. Jiang Liang laughed bitterly, and his expression dimmed. Only now, after seeing Fei Ren's true strength, did he realize that he had been merciful. Otherwise, he would not have been able to leave alive. Even if he did not die, he would have been seriously injured. In the sky, facing the green dragon golden Buddha shadow, Zhu Wuchang's face was still crazed. His red eyes did not flinch at all. Heaven baleful blade, slay all spirits. The blade aura gradually rose to its peak. In the next moment, Zhu Wuchang roared and slashed out with his blade. Accompanied by a flash of blood, a huge blood-red blade light appeared out of thin air. It was like a heavenly blade descending from the heavens, attacking Fei Ren below. The heaven baleful blade was his natal weapon. It was a grade 6 spirit treasure. Besides that, he'd even comprehended the might of the saber Tao. Compared to the complete saber intent, the embryonic form of the Tao of Saber was much more powerful. With the support of the Tao of Saber, the power of the Tiansha saber had increased by several times. Zhu Wuchang's saber was enough to destroy any LV-1 martial spirit realm expert. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the blood-colored saber light collided with the green dragon golden Buddha. Accompanied by a deafening roar, two majestic forces erupted in the next moment. Rumble! The blood-colored blade light and the azure dragon and golden Buddha images devoured each other and were locked in a stalemate. For a time, origin energy was in chaos and obliterated while the ground beneath everyone's feet trembled. Even the air was filled with the aura of Tao arts and origin energy fluctuations that were condensed and didn't disperse, causing everyone to be unable to help but take a few steps back and not dare move forward. Pucci, suddenly, an outer court disciple that was spectating the battle abruptly spat out a mouthful of blood, and in the next moment, his aura weakened as he knelt on the ground, seeming to have been affected by the residual might of the origin energy. All of you retreat quickly. Swoosh! Swoosh! Seeing this scene, the faces of several Scorching Sun sect elders changed slightly. Then, they flew forward and hurriedly activated their origin energy, forming an origin energy barrier to isolate the battle between the two of them so that the other outer court disciples wouldn't be affected. Kala! The origin energy barrier collapsed upon contact and shattered into pieces. However, taking advantage of these few breaths, the crowd of spectating disciples retreated one after another, leaving the range of the origin energy's residual might. After all, no one present expected the battle between Fei Ren and Zhu Wuchang to be so intense that it was far from a battle between elders. I didn't expect Brother Fei's strength to be so strong. Like most people, Wang Long had also retreated far away at this time. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the battle not far away. His cousin Wang Dashu, who was standing far away, was in a similar situation. His chubby face was filled with fear, and his pair of beady eyes were extremely wide. On the battlefield, the residual might of the blood-colored saber light and the azure dragon and golden Buddha images gradually dissipated. Ugh! Zhu Wuchang's figure reappeared, but his appearance was battered and exhausted. His clothes were in tatters and covered in blood and wounds. His originally handsome face was deathly pale, and he no longer had his previous imposing and heroic appearance. Boom! Zhu Wuchang staggered and spat out another mouthful of blood before falling to the ground. His aura dropped again, as if he had reached his limit. At the same time, although Fei Rin's situation was not optimistic, he was much better than Zhu Wuchang. He only suffered some external injuries, and a trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. His body did not fall, and he remained standing on the spot. Zhu Wuchang was defeated. Looking at the scene before them, the spectators at the side were also dumbfounded, unable to believe their eyes. It was obvious that Fei Rin had the upper hand in this life and death battle that would decide the outcome of the battle. Dying. Fei Rin's gaze once again turned towards the nearby Zhu Wuchang, whose aura was extremely weak. In the next moment, he also let out a low shout. At the same time, he circulated all the remaining Yuan power in his Dantian and threw the green dragon halberd in his hand towards Zhu Wuchang, his face filled with determination. Although Fei Rin's attack was not as powerful as before, Zhu Wuchang was also at his limit. He had less than 10% of his strength left, and there was no way he could block this attack. Swoosh! The azure dragon halberd flew across the sky like a sharp arrow, directly piercing Zhu Wuchang's heart meridian. It was unstoppable. No, I will die in the hands of a loser. At this time, facing the azure dragon halberd, Zhu Wuchang, who was lying on the ground, was also furious. A trace of anger appeared on his pale face. Stop! However, just as the azure dragon halberd was about to pierce Zhu Wuchang's heart meridian, a woman's cold voice suddenly came from afar. Clang! Bang! Accompanied by a primary power streak across the sky, the azure dragon halberd was also sent flying in the next moment. Sparks flew in all directions, and then it stabbed into the bluestone ground, emitting a cold light. At this time, a tall and beautiful figure appeared out of thin air, and then slowly landed in front of Fei Rin. It was a beautiful woman in yellow. Who are you? Looking at the woman in yellow who suddenly appeared in front of him, Fei Rin's eyes narrowed, and he asked in a low voice. Although he had defeated Zhu Wuchang, he had consumed a lot of primary power in his Dantian. At the same time, he had also suffered some injuries, and his strength was not as strong as before. The woman in yellow opposite him had primary power cultivation of level 10 Martial Master Realm. She was also an inner disciple, and her strength was not weak. If she insisted on stopping him from killing Zhu Wuchang, the situation would be very troublesome. It was very likely that he would have to use his trump card, the refining Immortal Cauldron, to get rid of future troubles. Qin Wu, looking at Fei Rin opposite her, the woman in yellow opened her mouth in the next moment. Her expression was serious, and her tone was heavy. It seemed that she had been watching the battle for a long time. Chapter 509. Like Zhu Wuchang, she was also an inner court disciple. She was not weak and was ranked 11th on the battle power ranking. Apart from that, the Qin family behind Qin Wu and the Zhu family behind Zhu Wuchang had been friends for generations. They were both rank 7 families in the Great Ming Dynasty. The two of them had been arranged by their elders since they were young. Although Qin Wu didn't have any feelings for Zhu Wuchang, her status as his fiancée was still there. Moreover, for the Qin family's benefit, she couldn't let Fei Rin kill Zhu Wuchang, so as to avoid the Zhu family's anger and a chain reaction. Hence, she had stopped Fei Rin earlier. Qin Wu. So she's Zhu Wuchang's fiancée. Fei Rin took out a high-grade recovery pill from his spirit ring and swallowed it. He had heard some rumors about her and Zhu Wuchang. As for whether Qin Wu would risk her life for Zhu Wuchang, he did not care. No matter what, he would not let Zhu Wuchang leave the battlefield alive. Fei Ren was very clear about the logic of letting a tiger return to the mountain. Miss Qin, I advise you not to interfere in this matter. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Thinking of this, Fei Ren withdrew his expression and said in a deep voice, It's Qin Wu. I didn't expect her to come as well. After all, this woman is Zhu Wuchang's fiancée. It's reasonable for her to save Zhu Wuchang this time. Sigh. I heard that senior sister Qin doesn't really like Zhu Wuchang. She's just restricted by her family's marriage. Actually, she's also a pitiful person. In my opinion, there's going to be a change in this battle. At this moment, when they saw Qin Wu and Fei Ren confronting each other on the battlefield, waves of discussions broke out from the crowd of spectators. Countless gazes landed on the two of them as they sighed and sighed with emotion. On the battlefield, could it be that this kid is still hiding his strength? Facing Fei Ren's threat, Qin Wu's pretty face froze. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. After all, he had used up a lot of his Dantian's origin energy in the battle with Zhu Wuchang. Moreover, he was injured. In her opinion, Fei Ren's current strength was already less than 10%. However, in the face of his obstruction, Fei Ren did not have the slightest intention of backing down. He was determined to kill Zhu Wuchang. Fei Ren, let him go. Our Qin family will repay you handsomely in the future. There was some hesitation in her heart. In the next moment, Qin Wu spoke again. Her jade-like hands quietly clenched tightly. After witnessing Fei Ren's terrifying strength, she was unwilling to fight with him unless she had no other choice, even if he was injured. Therefore, he planned to use benefits to persuade Fei Ren to let go of his killing intent. Let him go. Hearing this, Fei Ren smiled coldly. Zhu Wuchang had tried to kill him time and time again. Killing intent had already risen in his heart. It was impossible for him to let Zhu Wuchang go. Not to mention that Qin Wu was Zhu Wuchang's fiancée. Even if the current Scorching Sun sect master, Tai Xianjunren, Feng Songyan, tried to persuade him personally, it would be useless. Ah, brat, didn't you want to kill me? Do it. You think you can kill me? Loser. At the same time, seeing that Fei Ren was stopped by Qin Wu, Zhu Wuchang, who was lying on the ground, struggled to get up from the ground. His pale face revealed a crazed expression, and his eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at Fei Ren. After all, not only had he lost to Fei Ren in this life-and-death duel, but he had also been thoroughly defeated. It could be said that he had lost all face. Now that he finally had a chance to show off, Zhu Wuchang also used his verbal cannon mode and madly mocked Fei Ren. It was as if he was certain that with Qin Wu present, Fei Ren would definitely not be able to kill him. At this moment, facing Zhu Wuchang's crazy provocation, Fei Ren also frowned slightly, and the killing intent in his heart grew even stronger. No matter what, he was going to kill him today. Shut up. At this moment, perhaps because Zhu Wuchang's arrogant attitude annoyed her, Qin Wu also turned around and frowned. If not for the close relationship between the Qin family and the Zhu family, and the fact that she was engaged to Zhu Wuchang, Qin Wu would not be willing to interfere in this matter. Haha, Qin Wu, I know you still care about me. Don't worry, after this, I will officially take you as my wife. At that time, when our two families join forces, we won't even be afraid of a rank 6 family. However, facing Qin Wu's scolding, Zhu Wuchang only grinned and said with a meaningful tone. Right now, his thoughts were very simple. That was to stabilize Qin Wu and let her stall Fei Ren. As long as he could survive, he would have a chance to take revenge on Fei Ren in the future. Although Zhu Wuchang himself was not Fei Ren's match, the Zhu family behind him was a rank 7 family of the Great Ming Dynasty. There were several martial spirit realm experts in the family. As long as Fei Ren left the Scorching Sun sect, he would have many ways to kill Fei Ren. Hearing this, Qin Wu frowned slightly and did not say anything. She was very clear about Zhu Wuchang's temperament. As for whether these words were from the bottom of his heart, she was not sure. It's a pity that you won't have the chance. Suddenly, Fei Rin's cold voice came from the distance. In the next moment, a dark light flashed, and the green dragon star halberd flew through the air, pointing directly at Qin Wu. Clang! Facing the sudden attack, Qin Wu's pretty face changed slightly. At the same time, she raised her jade-like hand and blasted out a wave of origin power that immediately sent the green dragon star halberd flying. Kala. However, in the next moment, a strange white shadow avoided her line of sight and went straight for Zhu Wuchang, who was not far away. What? Qin Wu's beautiful eyes froze. Just as she was about to stop the strange white shadow, she was blocked by Fei Rin and was forced back with a punch. Accompanied by a shrill scream, Zhu Wuchang's body fell again in the next moment. Blood stained the ground, and the aura on his body suddenly dropped to the extreme. It was as if he was only hanging on by a breath and was not far from death. What is going on? In the face of this strange change, the spectators at the side exclaimed in a low voice. Then they all looked at Zhu Wuchang. They saw a white skeleton standing quietly in front of him. The white skeleton held a bone blade and pierced through Zhu Wuchang's heart with one blow. At the same time, a wisp of muscle tissue appeared on his legs and hands. It was very strange. It was one of Fei Rin's trump cards, Puppet Whitey. Puppet Whitey had absorbed a large amount of blood essence, and its strength had grown to around level 9 Martial Master. It could even fight against a half-step to Martial Spirit Realm Expert with its full strength. On the other hand, Zhu Wuchang was not only seriously injured, but also had less than 10% of his strength left. Naturally, he was no match for Puppet Whitey. Swoosh! After Puppet Whitey severely injured Zhu Wuchang, Fei Rin's figure flashed and immediately broke away from Qin Wu's entanglement. At the same time, he landed in front of Zhu Wuchang, his eyes filled with coldness and ruthlessness. Fei Rin, you will die a horrible death. The Zhu family will not let you go. Little bastard, I will definitely kill you. Looking at Fei Rin in front of him, Zhu Wuchang's face was filled with hatred and anger. He wanted nothing more than to skin Fei Rin and tear him into pieces. Although Puppet Whitey's bone blade had pierced through his heart meridian as a half-step to Martial Spirit Realm Expert, his vitality and physique were still very tenacious. He would not die immediately. Those who deserve to die will die in the end. Coldly glancing at Zhu Wuchang, who was struggling on the ground, Fei Rin did not hesitate. In the next moment, he circulated the Yuan power in his Dantian that had just recovered. He raised his hand and smashed Zhu Wuchang's head into pieces. Kacha! Zhu Wuchang's head exploded and a blood-curdling scream rang out. As red and white matter stained the bluestone ground, Zhu Wuchang was completely dead. A dignified inner sect genius, who was ranked 5th on the combat strength list, died at the hands of Fei Rin just like that. Chapter 510. Fei Rin, you actually killed him. At this time, Qin Wu also hurried over. Looking at Zhu Wuchang's corpse, her pretty face was filled with disbelief. She never would have thought that no matter how hard she tried, even if she personally pleaded, he would still kill Zhu Wuchang. He deserved to die. Glancing at Qin Wu, Fei Rin's tone was indifferent. He took out a high-grade pill from his spirit ring and swallowed it, slowly recovering his origin power and injuries. Kala. Little White, who was standing at the side, also had a tacit understanding. At this moment, it was also protecting Fei Rin. It held a pair of sharp bone blades in its hands, and its eyes that were looking at Qin Wu were empty and emotionless. It seemed to be wary of the other party. After all, Qin Wu was Zhu Wuchang's fiancée, and the Qin family and Zhu family had a close relationship for generations. He couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't suddenly attack to avenge Zhu Wuchang. Fei Rin, I'll remember you. Qin Wu glared fiercely at Fei Rin again, but this time, she didn't attack again. Instead, she turned and left, turning into a yellow shadow and flying toward a mountain peak not far away. Now that Zhu Wuchang was dead, there was no need for her to stay. As for whether the Qin family and Zhu family's relationship would break down because of this, Qin Wu herself wasn't sure. She had already done her best. She actually didn't attack. On the other side, seeing Qin Wu leave in a hurry, Fei Ren's face also had a trace of surprise. She had a close relationship with the dead Zhu Wuchang, and she was his fiancée. Logically speaking, he had killed Zhu Wuchang, so Qin Wu shouldn't have let him go so easily. However, in the end, it was far beyond Fei Ren's expectations. It seems that the rumors are true. This woman and Zhu Wuchang were only married to each other and didn't have any real feelings for each other. Suddenly thinking of something, Fei Ren's lips curled up. Then, he ignored her and continued to recover his origin power and injuries under the protection of Puppet Little White. Although he was targeted by Qin Wu, Fei Ren didn't care. She was only a 10th level martial master, and in terms of strength, she was no match for him. Moreover, a man doesn't fight a woman, so he didn't plan to tangle with Qin Wu at all. At this moment, along with Zhu Wuchang's death and Qin Wu's departure, the surroundings of the battlefield had fallen into deathly silence. Zhu Wuchang is dead. After a few breaths, a low exclamation suddenly came from the crowd. In the next moment, the atmosphere at the scene was completely boiling. Dead? Is he really dead? Who would have thought that even Zhu Wuchang was no match for Fei Ren? Who would have thought that the top genius of the inner sect, ranked 5th on the combat power list, would end up like this? Countless gazes fell upon Fei Ren. Among them, there were some who were surprised, some who were shocked, but most of them were filled with deep fear. After all, his opponent was only a LV8 martial master. However, he was able to reverse the situation and kill Zhu Wuchang, who was half a step into the martial spirit realm. Zhu Wuchang was ranked 5th on the combat strength list. His overall strength was comparable to a LV1 martial spirit realm expert. He was second only to a LV2 martial spirit realm expert. However, he had still died at the hands of Fei Ren, a new inner disciple. It was enough to show that although Fei Ren had not stepped into the martial spirit realm, he already had the strength to contend with a martial spirit realm expert. Fortunately, I did not provoke him. Below the stage, looking at Fei Ren, who was sitting cross-legged and recuperating from his injuries, Jiang Liang secretly swallowed his saliva. His eyes were filled with horror. Although he had fought with Fei Ren before, it was obvious that Fei Ren had not used his full strength. Moreover, the two of them were only competing for the ranking on the combat power list. It was not a life and death battle. Otherwise, he would have ended up like Zhu Wuchang, or even more miserably. This guy is really a monster. Other than Jiang Liang, Jin Shuangbao, and the other inner sect disciples also looked at each other. After all, Fei Ren's terrifying strength had not only shocked the outer sect disciples present, but also the inner sect disciples. They all had different expressions. Looks like I have to rope this guy in if I have the chance. After taking a deep breath, Jin Shuangbao's shocked expression gradually disappeared as he thought to himself. He was a disciple of the Jin family in the Eastern Sun region and was born in a 7th-rank family. Before joining the Scorching Sun sect, he was also a genius martial artist. However, compared to Fei Ren, he was not worth mentioning. For a family, the benefits of being on good terms with a top genius outweighed the disadvantages. Therefore, Jin Shuangbao wanted to rope in Fei Ren. Moreover, in addition to his identity as an inner sect disciple, Jin Shuangbao was also one of the few tycoons in the Scorching Sun sect. He was ranked 9th on the contribution list and had a total of more than 200,000 contribution points. Although he had spent more than half of them, his wealth was still huge and was enough to rope in Fei Ren. Cousin, Brother Fei Ren really won. Looking at Fei Ren, who was recuperating on the stage, Wang Dashu was also stunned. His mouth was wide open as if he could not believe what he had just seen. After all, the deceased Zhu Wuchang was a top genius in the inner sect. He was powerful and had a group of underlings called the Wuchang Gang. Even some of the inner sect geniuses were afraid of him. However, he had died in the hands of Fei Ren, an unknown new inner sect disciple. Looks like a Scorching Sun sect is going to change. Wang Dashu whispered. Wang Long was also shocked by Wang Dashu's whisper. He seemed to have guessed what was going to happen next. After today's battle, Fei Ren had become famous in the Scorching Sun sect. Moreover, with his terrifying strength, there was a high chance that he would become a rising star in the Scorching Sun sect in the future. He might even compete with the Scorching Sun Young Master, Feng Buhui. In the arena, Fei Ren was still focused on recuperating as he faced the fiery gazes from all sides. It was as if he was isolated from the outside world. It's time to leave. When Fei Ren sensed that the Yuan power and injuries in his body had more or less recovered, he stood up and recalled his puppet, Little White, before leaving the arena. Now that Zhu Wuchang was dead, he had achieved his goal, and there was no reason for him to stay any longer. A few days later, the news of Fei Ren killing Zhu Wuchang had spread throughout the Scorching Sun sect, causing a huge commotion. In addition to the many odd job disciples and outer sect disciples, even some inner sect disciples, ordinary deacons, and many elders knew about Zhu Wuchang's deeds. However, Fei Ren himself did not care about the news and focused on his cultivation. Another day passed. Gu Yefeng. Boom! His left hand formed into a fist, and his right hand held the green dragon star halberd. Fei Ren swept the halberd across the sky and blasted out a golden fist force. The fist force and halberd shadows intertwined and turned into a huge green dragon golden Buddha shadow that blasted toward a mountain wall not far away. Boom! Rumble! As the elemental energy whistled, the next moment, the green dragon golden Buddha phantom also violently collided with the thick mountain wall, leaving behind a huge bottomless pit as if it wanted to penetrate the entire mountain wall. The remaining elemental energy lingered for a long time without dissipating, causing one's heart to palpitate. The power of the green dragon golden Buddha attack has increased by a lot. Based on this cultivation speed, I'll be able to break through to the greater mastery realm in a few months at most. Fei Ren's figure slowly landed on the ground. He put the green dragon star halberd behind his back with a trace of relief on his handsome face. Chapter 511. The green dragon golden Buddha kill was something he had comprehended after cultivating the sword and saber dual arts. It was no weaker than a grade 8 martial art. Although Fei Ren had only cultivated this martial art to the initial realm, its power was not to be underestimated. It was enough to kill experts below LV2 martial spirit realm. If he could further improve his green dragon golden Buddha kill and step into the greater mastery stage, its power would at least double. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, a gust of wind came from the nearby cliff. In the next moment, a purple-robed figure arrived. Fei Ren boy, you have done something big. The purple-robed figure was slender and had an aged face. His entire body was surrounded by a dark energy that did not dissipate. It was the Scorching Sun sect's law enforcement elder, Feng Yun, who was known as Zishu Sage. Senior Feng Yun. Seeing that the person who had arrived was Feng Yun, Fei Ren cupped his hands respectfully. Back in Blackrock City, it was Feng Yun who had helped him resolve the siege of the Chao and Liu families. At the same time, Feng Yun had brought him into the Scorching Sun sect and taken good care of him. Naturally, he would not forget this kindness. Fei Ren boy, the sect leader and I are well aware of the grudge between you and Zhu Wuchang. We will not interfere. The combat strength ranking and contribution points that should belong to you will also be given to your identity token. However, Zhu Wuchang is the young master of the Zhu clan of the Great Ming Dynasty. The Zhu clan is famous even among the 7th-rank clans of the Great Ming Dynasty. If you kill him, there might be some trouble. Feng Yun nodded and stroked his long beard. He obviously knew about Zhu Wuchang's deeds. After all, the news of Fei Ren killing Zhu Wuchang had spread throughout the Scorching Sun sect. As the law enforcement elder, he naturally knew the inside story. Senior, are you here to remind me to be careful of the revenge of the Zhu family? As his voice faded, Fei Ren's expression remained calm as he opened his mouth to speak. He had expected the consequences of killing Zhu Wuchang. Even if the Scorching Sun sect did not pursue the matter, the family behind Zhu Wucheng would not let him off so easily. However, Fei Run would never be merciful to his enemies. He was very clear about the principle of removing weeds by the roots. You could say that. After all, Zhu Wucheng was a disciple of the Scorching Sun sect. After his death, the Zhu family will definitely investigate to the end. Although the Scorching Sun sect is not afraid of the Zhu family, there is no benefit to the Scorching Sun sect if we fall out with them. Therefore, Senior Brother Sect Master has said that we will not interfere in the aftermath of this matter and will let nature take its course. At this point, Feng Yun deliberately paused and looked at Fei Run with an unnatural gaze. Senior Feng Yun, was I abandoned by the Scorching Sun sect? Hearing this, Fei Run rubbed his nose. He more or less understood the other party's intentions. He probably wanted to avoid offending either side. Fei Run brat, you don't have to be so cold. The sect has its own reasons for doing this. Furthermore, the Zhu family still doesn't know about Zhu Wucheng's death. Moreover, if the Zhu family dares to find trouble with you, Senior Brother Sect Master can't do anything. However, I can help you. Sensing the slight change on Fei Ren's face, Feng Yun hurriedly explained in the next moment, as if he was afraid that the other party would misunderstand. In fact, these words represented the attitude of Feng Xiangyan, the Taishan spiritual master, and not Feng Yun alone. However, considering the relationship between the Zhu family and the Scorching Sun sect, Feng Xiangyan, the sect master, could not personally take action. He could only assign Feng Yun, the enforcement elder, to protect Fei Ren's safety. As the enforcement elder of the Scorching Sun sect, although Feng Yun's strength was not as strong as Feng Xiangyan, the Taishan spiritual master, his Yuan power cultivation had also reached level 3 martial spirit realm. Now that Zhu Wucheng was dead, the Scorching Sun sect had lost a genius. If Fei Ren suffered from the Zhu family's revenge, not only would it be a huge loss to the Scorching Sun sect, but it would also disappoint the other disciples. I see. Lord Sect Master is really considerate. Fei Run was not a fool. At this point, he more or less understood the Scorching Sun sect's attitude. His face was solemn. Although the Scorching Sun sect could not openly support him, if the Zhu family behind Zhu Wucheng really came to seek revenge, Feng Yun and the others would not stand by and do nothing. Not long after, Feng Yun left quietly after giving some instructions. Fei Run, on the other hand, did not continue to cultivate. Right now, he still had to collect his combat strength ranking reward and contribution points. Now that Fei Run had completely offended the Zhu family behind Zhu Wucheng, who knew what kind of experts the Zhu family would send to take revenge on him. Fei Run also knew that he could not hide in the Scorching Sun sect forever and rely on the protection of Feng Yun and the others. Therefore, increasing his strength was the most important thing. Within the Great Hall of the sect, Fei Run quickly received his reward for ranking on the powerhouse list and his contribution points. 30,000 contribution points. That's not bad. Looking at the skyrocketing contribution points on his identity token, Fei Ren's face was filled with satisfaction. Other than the 30,000 contribution points, he also received a lot of primordial stones and other treasures as rewards. However, none of these things caught his eye. In the end, he exchanged them all for contribution points, which amounted to almost 10,000 contribution points. 40,000 contribution points, in addition to the 20,000 contribution points that Fei Ren already had, amounted to a total of 60,000 contribution points. After all, even the top 10 nouveau riche disciples in the Scorching Sun sect contribution points list only had a total of 1 to 200,000 contribution points. Most of them had taken years to accumulate, and more than half of them had been spent. On the other hand, Fei Ren had only used one day to obtain 60,000 contribution points. Only 60,000 contribution points. It's still not enough to exchange for the glazed fire seed. As if suddenly remembering something, Fei Ren's expression turned serious. Then he sighed. A few days ago, he had taken a fancy to a treasure in the Scorching Sun sect's treasury. However, due to the lack of contribution points on hand, he was unable to obtain it. This treasure was different from ordinary treasures. It was a rare spiritual fire seed called the glazed fire seed. At the same time, it was also one of the treasures in the Scorching Sun sect's treasury. For many years, no one had been able to exchange for it, as it required a huge amount of contribution points. In this world, there existed all kinds of magical flame powers. Among them, the power was divided by the majority of martial artists into 7 levels: ordinary fire, beast fire, spiritual fire, mysterious fire, heavenly fire, sacred fire, and divine fire. Among them, ordinary fire was the weakest, and divine fire was the strongest. For alchemists, the power of this magical flame was many times stronger than the elixir fire derived from the Danteon. It was favored by many alchemists, and sometimes it could be used to kill enemies. Even the weakest ordinary fire could be compared to the elixir fire cultivated by an alchemist. Therefore, Fei Run was very interested in this glazed fire seed and wanted to obtain it. However, to exchange for this glazed fire seed, he would need a total of 100,000 contribution points. Currently, Fei Run was still short of 40,000 contribution points. Damn it, he was still short of money. Thinking of this, Fei Run could not help but sigh in his heart. Chapter 512. 40,000 contribution points was not a small number. He would have to complete at least a dozen 6-star sect missions to gather that amount. Even with Fei Ren's current strength, it would take him at least half a year to complete these sect missions. It was very troublesome. Therefore, he could only choose another method. That's right, I still have the Mother Blood Essence Stone. Clenching his fist, Fei Ren suddenly had an idea in his mind. He still had a rare Mother Blood Essence Stone in his possession. This spirit item could give birth to several high-quality blood essence stones every day. It was an endless supply. Right now, he could sell the remaining blood essence stones and earn contribution points. For ordinary warriors, the benefits of the blood essence stone were self-evident. Blood essence stones contained rich blood energy. If a martial artist absorbed it into their body, not only could it slightly increase their origin power cultivation, but it could also improve their blood circulation and strengthen their physique. It could be said that there were only benefits and no disadvantages. Since the blood essence stone was effective for warriors below the martial spirit realm, it was naturally valuable. One blood essence stone could be exchanged for hundreds of mid-grade primordial stones. Therefore, Fei Ren was confident that as long as he spread the news of the blood essence stone in his hands, there would be no lack of customers. Swoosh! A white light flashed from the spirit ring on his finger. In the next moment, Fei Ren took out a blood-red spirit stone. Mother Blood Essence Stone, although this spiritual item could produce several high-quality blood essence stones every day, Fei Ren was not satisfied. He needed more blood essence stones. Right now, he planned to plant the Mother Blood Essence Stone underground and create a Mother Blood Essence Stone load. From there, he could obtain a large amount of blood essence stones. As for why Fei Ren did not do this before, it was because he did not have the right place and time. In order to create a Mother Blood Essence Stone load underground, in addition to a long time, it also needed to absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth. It was best to choose a place with abundant spirit chi. Now, Guyu Peak, where Fei Ren lived, was filled with Scorching Sun sect's inner disciples and ordinary elders. It was very suitable for the formation of a Mother Blood Essence Stone load. Guyu Peak, inside the cave. After a while, Fei Ren used his Yuan energy to dig out a hole that was dozens of square meters in size. Then, he planted the Mother Blood Essence Stone into the ground and set up an energy-gathering array. The array enveloped the Mother Blood Essence Stone, and spiritual energy filled the area. Although he didn't understand the art of array formations, the essence-gathering array was only a low-level, profound-rank array formation. Its effect was merely to gather the nearby heaven and earth spirit energy, and the difficulty wasn't great. Even some ordinary alchemists could easily set it up. Fei Rin's spiritual force had already reached the 4th level of the profound martial realm, which was comparable to a 4th-grade alchemist. Therefore, it wasn't a problem for him to arrange a simple elemental gathering array. Done. After everything was arranged, Fei Rin's handsome face couldn't help but reveal a trace of gratification. Right now, Gu Yefeng's abundant spiritual energy, coupled with the effects of the essence gathering formation, would greatly accelerate the formation of the blood essence stone mother lode. At that time, as long as the blood essence stone mother lode formed, he would be able to harvest a large number of blood essence stones. Moreover, as long as the spiritual energy in Gu Yefeng was still present, the blood essence stone mother lode would never dry up. It would still be able to continuously produce high-quality blood essence stones. After arranging all this, Fei Rin also asked Wang Long and his brother to help him spread the news in the Scorching Sun sect that he intended to sell the blood essence stones in his possession. In the face of Fei Rin's request, Wang Long and his brother agreed without hesitation. It seemed that they didn't mind running errands for him. Another day later, while Fei Rin was cultivating cross-legged, there was a burst of wind outside the cave. It seemed that someone had come to visit. It seems that business has come knocking, sensing the movement outside. Fei Rin also stood up with a smile on his face. He had just released the news yesterday, and now someone had come to his door. It was obvious that they were here to trade the blood essence stones. Stepping outside, he saw a young man standing quietly in front of him. It seemed that he had been waiting for a long time. "Sir, are you here to trade the blood essence stones?" With a grin, Fei Rin asked. The young man in front of him was filled with a heroic spirit. At the same time, his body was surrounded by energy. His Yuan power cultivation had reached level 8 martial master. If he was not mistaken, the other party was also an inner sect disciple. However, compared to Zhu Wuchang, Feng Buhui, Qin Wu, and the others, the young man in front of him was slightly weaker. He could only be ranked in the lower class among the inner sect disciples. "Yes, I am Jin Shuangbao. On the day of the challenge, Brother Fei's strength impressed me greatly. I have come to visit." In the face of Fei Rin's inquiry, the young man named Jin Shuangbao cupped his hands and smiled. "Jin Shuangbao? So it's him." Hearing this, Fei Rin's face froze for a moment before he recovered his senses. Back when he was looking at the 3 rankings, he had heard of this name. The other party was one of the top 10 nouveau riche disciples on the contribution ranking. His total contribution points were more than 200,000. Therefore, seeing Jin Shuangbao come to buy blood essence stones, Fei Rin was not surprised. After all, the other party had more than enough wealth. "You're too polite. How many blood essence stones do you want to buy?" Thinking of this, Fei Rin nodded again and said, "Brother Fei, I'll buy as many as you have." Laughing again, Jin Shuangbao said again. Originally, he came this time with another purpose. Buying the blood essence stones in the other party's hands was only one of them. Roping in Fei Rin was the most important. With the other party's talent and potential, it was worth it for him to rope in. "You're really bold. However, I don't accept haggling here. One hand for the money, and the other for the goods." Seeing that Jin Shuangbao intended to buy all the blood essence stones in his hands, Fei Rin was also slightly surprised. In the next moment, he unhurriedly replied. Right now, he was in urgent need of contribution points. If the other party could buy all the blood essence stones in his hands in one go, it would naturally be a good thing. 1 blood essence stone for 1,000 contribution points. How about that? Jin Shuangbao said again in an indifferent tone. It seemed that, in his opinion, these contribution points were nothing. 1,000 contribution points. Faced with Jin Shuangbao's offer, Fei Rin narrowed his eyes. He was somewhat tempted in his heart. After all, 1,000 contribution points was not a small amount. It was enough to exchange for hundreds of thousands of low-grade primordial stones. Right now, he still had more than 20 blood essence stones. If he sold them all, he could exchange them for more than 20,000 contribution points. If Brother Fei is not satisfied with this price, I can raise the price a little more. Just treat it as making friends, How about this? I'll pay 1,500 contribution points for one blood essence stone. How about that? Seeing that Fei Run was not moved, Jin Shuangbao opened his mouth again. It seemed that he was afraid that the other party would not be satisfied with this price and the deal would fall through. 1,500 contribution points. Hearing this, although Fei Run was still calm on the surface, he was ecstatic on the inside. There was no doubt that regardless of whether the other party was here to make friends or to do business, he had profited greatly from this transaction. One blood essence stone for 1,500 contribution points. Such a good deal could not be found anywhere. Okay, deal. After taking a deep breath, Farron also opened his mouth. It was as if he was afraid that Jin Shuangbao would suddenly go back on his word. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.